Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep, little darling. Go to sleep, little darling. Go to sleep, little darling. You know you can't be beat. I'm in love with you. I'm in love with you.
Hertek. Here. Goods. Here. Miranda. Here. Citro. Yes. We have a physical quorum.
Thank you very much. And I believe our next item, which is still a walk-on, Kaden Henderson.
Good
Ms.
afternoon,
Feely.
Council. Abby Feely, Deputy Administrator for Development and Growth Management, in place of Ms. Henderson this afternoon. This is a walk-on. We have received $6.3 million in home ARP, which is part of the American Rescue Plan. And this money is coming in and is going to provide homeless assistance and support services. And I believe what had happened was there was an error in how this document was filed in SIRE. We're going to bring you that next Thursday night, August 4th, but it was put into SIRE on the August 4th. So the reso for you today is to set that hearing for next Thursday night at 5:01 p.m. It has already been published and noticed. It was just placed in the wrong SIRE meeting. So I'm here today to ask if you would please correct that, and we'll be back before you next Thursday night to talk about those additional funds that are coming in from the federal government.
And there was file number E 2022-48, correct?
Correct.
Motion correct.
A motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Osea Wynn.
Good afternoon, Council. Osea Wynn, Administrator of Neighborhood and Community Affairs. I too have a walk-on item. I wanted to give you an update on where we are since the acquisition of the Penny Saver. I wanted to proactively come to keep you abreast on where we are in the progress that we're making. So after the acquisition, the purchase of the Penny Saver, in which I'm sure all of you are aware, we have been working on the closure of Caracas. Councilman Goods, you know, when we had the community meetings, that was a concern regarding the safety issues with cars speeding down Caracas. So the second hearing for that will be August 4th. During that time, as we were acquiring the Penny Saver, we are also working on the RFQ for the work to be done for the actual complex. We have selected one firm. We started with 6, down the selection committee ended up with 3, with one firm that was finally chosen for that selection process. With this firm, we have we're in the negotiation phases of the firm, and right now we're looking at a pre-design and engineering work to include more than 75% that will go to WMBEs, with the majority of that going to BBEs. This is huge for us because typically in the engineering and design, we don't have that much participation. We see it in the construction phases, but in this part of the project, in the professional services, engineering and design, we do have, right now we're looking at maybe 60-65% participation in that area. Did you have a question, Councilman Goose? I see you have a complex.
Can we elaborate, or can we acknowledge who the firm is?
The firm, yes, we can. So the firm that we are having the negotiations with is Skansa. And Skansa, the architectural firms are Harry Howard Architectural Firms, as well as Kim Jackson, PR firm, who will be doing the community engagement piece of this project.
For the record, I have to ask this question because people are going to ask me this question.
Yes, sir.
You had a total of approximately, 6 firms that applied for the job. How many of those were African American?
None of the firms that applied that were out of the 6 were African American firms. None of them came through as certified firms to participate in the process. However, the companies who the consultants of the companies, businesses who bidded on the contracts, they came with partners, the EBO partners, but none of those that came to bid on the contract were actually EBO firms in and of themselves, if that makes sense.
Because I heard of 2 of the names, and 2 of the names I thought were big, that are minority firms, that were pretty big firms. So I'm kind of surprised that happened. But I mean, I know two of the firms very well. So, but okay, all right. Whoever got selected got selected.
Okay, so we will have a workforce and apprenticeship compliance program. Like I'm taking the lessons learned from some of the other projects and embedding them here ahead of the actual project. But we're in the negotiations in terms of that piece as we move forward. We're excited, and I'm quite sure everyone is excited to see this project take place. And again, like I said, I wanted to make sure that I got ahead of this before you, so that you'll know where we are and what our next steps are. So our next steps are to have the community engagement piece, another community engagement piece, to get input in terms of what the community would like to see in the actual building.
And how long are they saying for a community engagement?
I'm sorry?
How long did the firm is saying will take for their community engagement?
The firm is not saying that because we have not gotten to that level of negotiations yet.
Okay, all right.
However, we do know that it won't be like a year community engagement.
All right, okay, all right, that's good. And just another added point, I know when we start that, a lot of the kids walk, or the staff walk the kids from 3 different elementary schools there. So somehow, if we're gonna bring that new design on the frontage of 34th Street closer, we need to have a crosswalk somewhere in that midpoint up there so we can cross the kids with some lights because of the traffic and the speeding, because we get a lot of issues down the street from Potter's always complaining about the speeding. So we want to make sure we have some kind of crosswalk in front of that project.
Yes, sir, and all of that will be taken into the consideration, and including, because we are looking at having a senior center, how do we make it convenient for the seniors who are not in the area to get there? So what partnerships do we need with HART or maybe some of the other agencies to make it more convenient? So we're looking at this forwardly and holistically instead of just at one point in time, we're just doing a project.
And possibly looking at maybe a bus ramp for Heartline or somebody, because, again, this park is not just for that area, it's for all that surrounding area with the amenities that we're talking about putting there. So, those that may catch the bus or the Heart Plus can drop them off and have a safe place to drop those seniors off.
Right. So we are looking at our next, I keep saying next steps, but our next immediate steps are demoing the Penny Saver. The building has been secured with a fence. We're looking at cutting the power and everything that's needed for that. And realistically, I think within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll start with the demo. We're going to make this a public event because what we're doing in this area is in fact historical. So
Community's excited right now. They're
Yes.
very excited right now.
yeah. Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hurtak.
I want to say thank you for talking about the apprenticeship program, and I would be interested to know in our next update, how that's going before the contracts.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Councilman Carlson, Ms. Nguyen, we're not.
Yeah, I
We have
mentioned
another
this
question.
in the, I think it was the CRA meeting, but please keep in mind when going to the public that the CRA initiated this effort, and the CRA put in money. We're not sitting a CRA right now, but also City Council advocated for it. So I'd appreciate if, first of all, if the CRA was recognized, not individuals, but just the organization, so that the public knows that the CRA contributed to it, and also that City Council, at least as a whole, be included so that the public knows that we're working together on it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Councilman Carlson, I guess in my haste to sit down, I did not publicly note that, in fact, it was the contributions from the CRA and City Council, or the CRA to make this possible. City Council, we had local, state, and federal partners. We have contribution to the senior center only. I want to keep saying that, but $1 million has been given to us by federally for the senior center, and then as well as our community partners. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Let the record reflect that Councilman Vieira has joined us by internet. Next agenda item is agenda item number 4, file number PW22-75850.
Good morning, City Council. Jean Duncan, Administrator for Infrastructure and Mobility. I apologize, I was just finding my item among the many that I am working on here. We have an item for a contract that is over the $3 million limit. I shared the EBO participation and breakdown with that on our council briefings. I apologize, I don't have that right in front of me. But my recall, it was about a 32.1% EBO participation on that contract. It's for water main work in the Belmar Gardens area, very important work to get that infrastructure replaced and up and running properly. So we're asking for your approval of moving that contract forward so we can get that water main work out. It is part of our pipes project. And again, we're pleased that we have a EBO participation of about 32.1%.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Since you're there, let's go on to agenda item number 5.
Yes, sir.
PW 22-75883.
Yes, thank you. Again, Jean Duncan, this item is an extension or an addition to an existing contract that we issued in 2018.
Recess.
No. That's a medium, make sure you're aligned.
Yes. Please proceed.
Yes, sir. Yes, this is a cost increase actually to an existing contract that we issued in 2018. It's for a lot of different elements associated with odor and corrosion control at our wastewater treatment plant. The cost increase is about $443,000. It is the first time this contractor has asked for a cost increase, and that is due, of course, as we all know, to increasing prices. And this particular chemical that we require for the odor control is called bioxide, and the cost for that has gone up. So we're asking for approval of this cost increase for this particular item for our wastewater department.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Ms. Duncan, at this time, even though there was a couple continued agenda items, 43 and 44, I see Whit Reamer is here. I would like to at least have some discussion on that, if you would, Whit. Mr. Reamer, excuse me.
We appreciate that, Chair. We do have some consultants with us that have traveled from Tallahassee as well as Mr. Remmer, who left his family vacation with 3 young children. So we do appreciate just a short amount of time to share the information from that staff report.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I object to this. It's out of order. This is, the public was here this morning to give input on this, and this appears to be a political attempt to push a project that the public doesn't want, and it's without public scrutiny. It's not scheduled for this time, so nobody would be watching this. They should come back at a scheduled time and have a discussion about this, and we can have a full, robust debate about it.
Councilman Miranda.
If no one was here this morning and we were living in a desert where no one showed up, these items were put in the agenda. And in fact, these items were voted to be transferred in November to September 15, 22, without anyone asking if anybody else in the audience had any participation. They've been here. If I'm wrong, I've seen some of these faces here. If you were here at 9 o'clock in the morning, just raise your hand, or 9:30 in the morning. So they were here, they were not heard, and we passed this prematurely to send it to September 15th of 22, so my motion is going to be to reopen to listen.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda. Is there a second? I'm passing the gavel. I will second that motion.
I hear a quick thing now? All right.
Mr. Chair, but can we clarify the motion?
Yeah.
Are we hearing public input? Because if it's public input, then the staff person would get 3 minutes. Are we hearing a full staff presentation, or are we hearing public
It's
input?
up to the council to decide what they want. But I mean, the
Well,
public
what's the
spoke
motion?
today they had 3 or 4 individuals speaking. So you allow for 3 minutes each, I guess that's fine with them. I never asked, in fact, never talked to them until I saw them after we went on break. And they said, what happened to us? I said, nothing, we just was full of items.
This is not at all fair to the public, and it's another surreptitious thing by the water department to try to trick the public into approving this.
You know, the
And-
only thing I tricked anybody is when I threw a changeup. And that's in baseball. There's no changeup in politics. The media's here. What else do we want? Are we afraid to say that somebody else wants a different opinion from mine? The public's entitled. to
I'm
have
not
a
afraid, but we've
different
caught the
opinion
water
from mine. I'm
department in
talking about myself, Mr. Carlson. I'm
multiple
not talking
fact
about you.
errors and multiple.
This is not an error, sir. This was happened, maybe, and I'm not accusing anyone. This happened before they had a chance to speak. They've been here. That's all I'm saying. So for clarity and transparency.
This shows
this
this administration wants this so badly that they're willing to do anything and go against the public to pass this.
We have a motion.
This
that
is
can be
why the
voted
public
on or
doesn't
not
trust this
voted on.
administration.
That's your opinion. I appreciate your opinion, but my opinion is different than yours. That's it. I'm not mad with you. It's a different opinion.
I'm not mad at
that's
you
all.
either. I'm mad at the
No.
administration for misleading the public and giving false information to the public, and now trying to have a discussion when the public's not here.
But the question is, were they here? Did they butt in? No, they were here. So what am I supposed to do? Just listen to one side, the hell with the other side, no matter which side?
But based on what you're saying, we should hear the public, not hear the full presentation on what they're gonna say.
Maybe you
The
allow
presentation
3
has to be
minutes each.
scheduled for the
public
public.
is allowed 3 minutes each.
Councilman Carlson, we don't have a full presentation. We just had a quick update. Respectfully, every member of council has been briefed on exactly what we were presenting today. It was in Sire. We regretfully had to move a standing meeting that we have with some of the stakeholders that was scheduled for last week. It's now scheduled for tomorrow. They received all of this information earlier this week. And we have the amendment that council asked us to prepare back in February to present to you today that stays within the lanes of exactly what this body asked us to do, which was to expand all alternatives analysis of all of the combinations that are available under the PURE program, and to engage in robust public community engagement. Nothing's gonna change between today and September.
Take the vote.
All right, thank you very much. I have a motion from Councilman Miranda and a second from
Mr.
Councilman
Chair,
Citro, and Councilman
may.
Vieira has a comment. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. You know, it's funny because when that motion was originally made early in the meeting, I was surprised if the administration didn't want to go forward with it, or didn't want to have it continued, that someone didn't say something early on. I'm for, if the administration wants to make comments on this, I'm fine with it. It's my belief they're not going to make the whole presentation on it. You know, and I'll just end it at that. I mean, again, I'm fine with hearing people out, but if we're gonna vote to change something from what was done earlier this morning, you know, a lot of people may have left who were gonna speak on that and may have left because of that, I think. Again, I'm not there physically, but I'm just saying that. But I'm fine with going forward and allowing folks to talk. But again, everything within good measure. Thank you.
Thank you. He's gonna make a brief presentation. There's nothing to vote on because we've already postponed it till September, so that's it. I
Yes,
just said
sir.
a quick update. We have a motion from
Yes, sir.
Councilman, yes, sir.
I don't have a problem hearing some comments from staff, that case, but the general public was here and we decided to move to the 15th. So they don't have an opportunity to rebut if they've got the consultants or whoever here to talk. They don't have a chance to give their opinion on that. So I think that might be an issue.
The one thing I do want to make clear to council is this came up on the consent agenda item. So typically what would happen is the public would make comment during the public comment and would not be involved in some sort of debate when you approve the item. So you would take their comments up front.
But
So
we
I just wanna
also,
make that-
we also told you we weren't going to bring it up, and we don't know how many people left.
Understood, and that's a fair comment.
Yes, ma'am.
But also, we had, it said in this agenda that requesting that the item be moved to staff report, so it wasn't going to be a consent agenda item.
But even under staff reports, you don't typically have a public, it's not scheduled for a public hearing. You typically hear it separately under staff reports. You don't typically, unless you can, obviously, the council can waive its rules and allow public comment at almost any time during the meeting. But typically, you take the public comment on anything that's not set for a public hearing under general public comment. That's how our meeting.
What's going to happen if he presents, even what he just said is not true? It doesn't stay within the lanes. It doesn't follow the exact description. The whole thing is put together in a biased way. And are we going to spend 3 hours talking about this, or are we going to and let them present misinformation again, or are we going to have this at a time when the public can give input on it?
We have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. Vieira, what was your vote, yes or no?
Let's take a roll call.
Yes.
You want, that's 4-3. If you want to take a roll call vote. Motion from Miranda, second from Citro, roll call.
Hurtak,
No.
Carlson? No. Goods?
No.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Motion carried with Hurtak, Carlson, and Goods voting no.
Thank you. And again, we don't have a Whit-Raymer Sustainability and Resilience Officer for the City of Tampa. We don't have a formal presentation today, so thank you for allowing me just the opportunity to tell you just a little bit about the amendment before you. If you'll remember, back in February of this year, the city came, the administration came to City Council with a contract to undertake an initial services agreement with PCL. They're the prime on a big water reuse project that the city is considering that we call PURE. Under that initial services contract, there were a few alternatives that the city had kind of narrowed down through some previous engineering. City Council made very, very clear to us that those alternatives weren't sufficient, that they didn't cover a broad enough set of options on how to beneficially reuse the city's water. So City Council and members of many environmental stakeholder groups asked that the city go and amend that contract to look at all available options. I'll just remind you of a couple of them. Expanding the Purple Pipe program, water conservation, deep well injection, selling water to a regional water entity. All of those things were things that this body asked the administration to go and amend in that contract. The second thing that this body and the public asked for was for robust public engagement. We had some very preliminary documents that were put together by the then public engagement consultant, which weren't sufficient to us, and previewing those, I think, with some members of council and the public didn't really meet the mark. So for the last couple of months, we've been working on this amendment to include all the alternatives that this body suggested, recommended, demanded, and also to search for a new public engagement consultant. We have done both of those things. Those are in the amendment. This is literally an amendment that City Council requested us to put together. I regret that we weren't able to brief the full amendment to that stakeholder group that we meet with regularly last week, but they are in receipt of it now, and the amendment is not going to change between today and September. It's going to stay the same. So just delaying it, unfortunately, works against, I think, what perhaps council is asking for, which is the opportunity for the public to engage more. That's what this amendment does, is it allows us to go out and start that really important public engagement. Right now, the water department and my department feel really constrained with the amount of work we can do on the PURE program because we've got a very small slice of funding available. This contract amendment with PCLs for $1.1 million and some change, and will allow us to go answer all of the questions that I think Councilman Carlson and other members have posed to us. We can't do this work. We can't start answering these questions. We can't do the engineering and the public engagement without this amendment in place, and nothing's going to change between now and September. I would respectfully ask this body to rescind the continuance and vote on this amendment today.
I thought he was just going to give an update. See, this is another ploy by the administration to try to sell this. Mr. Chair, number one, the city, I've talked to the DEP, if the city sends an honest request to the DEP, they will get approved to continue doing exactly what we're doing, which will buy us time. The main excuse for moving this forward is that the state is forcing us to do it. It's not true. And if they send a request to DEP, which they told me they're going to do, that has any bias whatsoever in it, I may end up personally filing a lawsuit because I am sick and tired of this misinformation out there. Number two, the alternatives were not based on science. They're based on politics and desire by somebody. All but one of them require the city and city water ratepayers to spend millions, if not billions of dollars to build something when we absolutely don't have to. One of the alternatives would be to sell the water as is. That's not included in there. And all of these alternatives, can I finish, please? These alternatives do not include that. What this is designed to do is to give somebody in the water department, the mayor's office, the right to be able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars with somebody when we don't need to do that at all. So these alternatives are not the right alternatives. They're not based on what I request or we requested. Public engagement, as I read it, there are now 3 PR firms, including one from Tallahassee that's sitting in the back. You've had since February, and the contract says we'll put together a public engagement plan for you. Well, why didn't you do that in February or March? Now you're going to ask us for money so we can go put together a plan? It should by now have a list of all the public meetings, what you're going to do, et cetera. Instead, what it has is we're going to create videos. We're going to create a branding manual, an identity manual for PURE so that we can explain to the public what it is, presumably so they'll like it. This is not about public engagement anymore. It's turning into a political campaign because the mayor knows it's a liability. She's not going to get reelected if this gets passed. Anybody who votes for this is not going to get reelected. The public hates it. They're including a poll. They want to find out what the public says. The poll likely will be skewed, just like everything else they present. And this is a huge problem. This is not, if this does not change between now and then, there are going to be 1,000 people here in the public because this is not acceptable. It's pretending like they're listening to us, pretending like they're listening to the public, and they're absolutely not. They're trying to pull one over on the public. They want to double or triple water rates and make people drink potty water or put potty water in our system. And we don't need to do that. We don't need to waste ratepayer money on this. We need to do something that's responsible for this public.
Councilman Goose.
You know, Mr. Miranda, you are a sports fanatic guy, a baseball guy, you know, and I'm a football guy, but I'm gonna tell you, there's a flag on the plate. There's a flag on the plate. You had him until you said what you said. But I have to agree with him on that portion. I mean, that was good. You know, I let you tell your spiel, whatever. But then you come and tell this council what you wanted us to go and move this. To me, that's a foul on the play. So I can see why the man's hot. He's hot. I can't blame him, but that was a flag on the play.
Sometimes even on the TV they reverse the call. Remember that, my friend. But what I'm trying to tell you is this. It was us that asked them to expand the focus. Am I correct?
That is
Maybe
correct.
I'm wrong, but if I remember, I'm getting older, my mind's getting better. I got a problem.
We did.
So that's what we did. So if anything, we're the ones that asked him to do this, to expand the focus. Am I correct or not? So that's all I got to say. Listen, it's the public's, and me, every time I hear somebody's not going to get elected, I'm never afraid of an election. You either win or you don't get enough votes. And sometimes when you don't get enough votes, I'm not talking about myself, you're better off. Next.
Councilwoman Hurtak, Chief.
I've been working on this issue all week. We've been talking about it. I've been asking for different documents. I want to know what the money's currently been spent on. As I mentioned earlier, this is what I do in my day job, monitoring and evaluation of aid projects, of government projects. This is what I do. And in midterm evaluations, when you're at the midpoint of something and when you're coming back and asking for more money, you have to account for where the money has been spent already. I asked for that and I got a list of things, but I don't know how much was spent on each thing. So I want to know where the money's been spent. Then I also want to know the money that we're going to be spending, where is it going to be spent? I echo Councilman Carlson, we do not need 3 PR firms for this. When reading through the documentation I got last night, again, the same documentation on the PR firm, I do not understand what the PR firm is going to do for us. It sounds like they're trying to sell the project when that is not what this council asked for. This council asked for them to educate about these possible issues, and even if the public wanted to continue. So if it's such a good idea, this project should sell itself. It should not need three PR firms. Also, again, having come in the middle of this, my question is, what is PURE actually? Is PURE a solution for drinking water and finding cheaper and better ways to do that? Or is it to satisfy the wastewater mandate? And even if it is that, what is the state's mechanism for enforcement of this mandate? So there's so many unanswered questions. I do not want them answered right now. I am just speaking about what I was going to speak on if this had actually come up. So I'm going to mention it because now I don't know if it's going to go to a vote. And I'm really mad about that because, again, I was prepared, and I'm glad I was prepared, but this is not okay. Just throwing it back on us is not okay. I want the public here, but I also really want accounting for where the money's gone and where it's going to go. I'm fine with supporting an amendment for it, but I still want to know the absolute to the penny where that money's going to go and where it's been spent already, because it doesn't sound like it's been spent on actually making this plan. Thank you.
Never get
Chief?
mad at yourself.
Good afternoon, John Bennett, Chief of Staff. I try and do my best over the last 3 years to be collaborative and collegial with all parties, council. I hope council agrees with that. I try and sit in as many of water conversations as possible, knowing that I have 7 other portfolios to watch, and try and make sure that I at least listen and hear. I will tell you that if you really bring us all down, the only intention of city government, in my opinion, is to make sure that we have what I call the big 3, is good, healthy, safe, clean drinking water at the best possible price, sustainable by the environment and the supply. So that's I try and simplify things. So I listen for those facets all the time. And I didn't come up here to say anything about, and I do listen to Councilman Carlson when he talks about the difference between PURE as a process versus a program. And I try and make sure that we listen in that same way when I get into these meetings sometimes. But the only reason I came up is to, and I do agree with everything said about the public, and if we have to continue it to get the information that council's asking today, I think that's a very responsible thing to do. And I'm willing to sit in with any group. I think we're trying to have a meeting with Councilman Carlson offline to hear more of the ideas and try and make sure we find the common ground on this for the future of Tampa, which is really the only goal. And I will say the region, because I am a regionally minded person. I worked across the Bay. I understand the intricacies of all these basic needs and transportation. But the one thing I would say, and I talked to the chairman about this, and I would just appreciate all of us working together on it, is that if something is going to continue during agenda review, can we give the staff a chance to give feedback about the continuance, whether it goes or stays? It doesn't matter to me. But one thing we tend to not do is we tend to continue something without giving the lead staff person a little bit of feedback before the vote is taken. So it's just a general working relationship thing that I would ask for going forward. And we would avoid this situation going forward. So thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Thank you for those comments, and you've been an honest broker working with us on lots of things, and I look forward to having a meeting with you or whomever to try to work this out. We have to do what's in the best interest of the public, and it's not in the best interest of the public for ratepayers to take on billions of dollars of debt or even hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. And we have to make sure that we tell the truth and we tell it consistently. And I'll give you a couple examples, which I've mentioned before. The first time I met the mayor about this 3 years ago, she said, well, we can't work with Tampa Water, for example, because the desal plant doesn't work. And I said, it's been working for 15 or 20 years. But it showed that somebody had given her false information. Somebody given the mayor false information. And she said, well, it's not working at capacity. And I explained it's the most expensive source of water. And so it's not used at full capacity because we don't need that. You and I sat in a meeting with the mayor in February, and my legislative aide was there. And she said, well, we can't buy from Tampa Water because their water quality is bad. And I said, Madam Mayor, we disproved this publicly 3 years ago. The water is treated 2 different ways, and it's a $250,000 a year fix to fix it. And so again, she was given false information. And I think that she's got the best interest of the public at mind, hopefully. But somebody is giving her false information. We know that inconsistent information has been presented to even Lynn's neighborhood association before she got on council. We need to make sure that there's an honest dialogue. In other areas, I don't hear feedback about misinformation and wrong information. We had the police this morning, and there are disagreements about different things, but I never hear feedback like I do on this. There's so many people in the public that don't trust this process. And we need to take a step back and not force it through and put up false reasons to push it through quickly. We need to be honest and open with the public and not argue with them. And the public communication has to be interactive with the public to present honest, factual information and hear back from them and really listen to them. The way it's set up in this document, it looks like we're going to create a brand document and videos to sell it to the public because we think they're dumb and they just don't understand it. Or that I'm dumb and I don't understand it. And the truth is that we do understand it, which is why we're against it, and we want the water department to do the right thing. So I look forward to working with whomever to try to make this an honest project that will be better for everyone. If we can do that, we can present in September all together, and I'll make the motion. Thank you.
And I appreciate that feedback. I will say that, not being a water expert by any sense of the imagination, I watched the mayor when she first entered office. The first thing she did was invited regional partners in, knowing this was a concern, and asked her their feedback on how to do this both locally and regionally, and she was willing to take in that feedback. So, that's the one thing that I really applaud our leadership for, whether it's council or the mayor, is that their willingness to listen to all different things and come out with the right answer, both for our jurisdiction and our contiguous jurisdictions going forward, because this probably will be the most important resource, in our repertoire of government services going forward. So I'm willing to do whatever I can to keep working with the groups to help it move forward. But I just wanted to ask that one consideration, because there are good reasons to continue things, and sometimes we got to move the ball forward. But I would just ask if we could just ask the lead staff person, and again, then the vote is the vote after that. That's all I'm asking. So thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you, Chief Bennett, for bringing up another point about not being a water expert. I am not a water expert. No one up here is a water expert. And so we do rely on the water department and their experts. And one of the questions I asked was that, we choose a firm to work with that really understands water too, and not just necessarily a political PR firm. And I would really, really want any firm that comes in front of us for approval to show that they can talk about these complicated water issues. I have been on weekly phone calls, hour-long calls to learn about water and all of these different options. And I keep saying how difficult it is to understand, and I don't know how they are going to distill this into the 5 different options in ways that folks understand. So to me, the choice of the PR firm is the most important thing we can do. So I need to know that those people understand water. And I even joked, and I don't think I was, now I don't think I was joking, that I think that council should see the presentation before it goes to the public, so that we can make sure it's, 6th grade quality, that everyone can understand it. So this is very complicated, very important, and I think what we are all saying is we just don't want to get it wrong, and we don't want any misinformation to make it to the public, because they already have a mindset on this, and we're not trying to change minds, we're trying to educate on all the options. So what again, when you come forward on September 15th, I want to see what they're planning on doing. I don't need an answer now. I'm just saying, I really want more in-depth on what this is going to look like for the general public.
May I just respond briefly? Thank you. The presentation today was never the presentation from the community engagement firm. The vote today was to go under contract with that firm so they could develop those materials. The reason there are three PR firms is because this is a very complicated issue. So we need robust resources to go out and do that engagement. Once this firm's under contract, the first people to see their plan, their proposed plan, will be this council and that member of stakeholder groups. Nothing will go to the public without this body being able to deliberate significantly on that proposed plan. Councilwoman, I heard that one of the requests was at least 7 meetings. That's been noted already, but we can't put these people to work without an amendment to this contract, and I just wanted to offer that. So what we come with on September 15th was going to be no different than what I'm telling you right now. We can't ask these people to do work for free.
And I'm not asking them to do work for free, but I am asking for this. I want a more breakdown budget, so I do expect you to come back with something a little bit different, because I'd like a breakdown of the budget that was already spent, a budget that will be spent, and just some ideas from staff to give to the PR firm. I understand that a PR firm needs to make those, I mean, that's what they do, but in my experience in education, if you don't give people very clear information, they can't pass it along, because we're expecting the PR firm to learn about water. And we need to be able to have given them that information. So I do expect the water department to be able to come to us with an explanation that isn't going to take an incredibly long time. It's very difficult, and I don't envy you. And I know you all are doing, you're working really hard on this, and we're asking a lot, but it's because this is so complicated and so critical and so expensive.
Can we move forward on this? Councilman Goods.
In our conversation, I always say I'm not the water guy. I start off, I'm not the water guy, but, we want to make sure the public has what they need. I talked about those PR firms. I said, introducing it, people will have a perception or perceive that something's not right, something's not clean. And it's just like when I said it to you guys, it turned out just like I said I knew it would. And then Councilwoman Hurtek talks about, and I said that somebody who actually knows the product, knows what needs to be done, knows the ins out, she said, of water, of what we're looking for. You go to some communities, they have no idea about no water, but all they know is just how much costs my bill, tell me why we need this. That's why they're saying to make sure that we tell people those different options, and also to be able to, for a 6th grader to be able to read it, to understand it. So I get that point, and that's why I said from the get-go, I don't have a problem with a firm, but making sure you got the right firm now, because apparently you didn't have the right firm that you say you're doing the work with. So I think just going forward, make sure you got the right person or the right firm to do the job. This particular point, with really information that people can be able to read and understand it and know about water, and really look at the options. I'm not a big water guru like some of Mr. Miranda, Mr. Carlson's people, but I do know if there's a way that you could just pump this water or the sewage, whatever, to someplace else and they store it. I don't know why we're doing all these other different options when there may be some simpler options that are cheaper. Maybe not be cheaper, but it may be a simpler option that's cost. So that's what I'm looking at. What's the best option? Not something we just want to do, but what is the best option to get from A to B to say we got a good cost-effective measure for the citizens?
Those are the exact questions we'd like to answer too, sir.
All right.
Councilman Carlson.
Hopefully make this my final comments. I appreciate your discretion.
Thank you.
We've approved 2 or 3 times before budgets that included public engagement. And I used to be in this business. I gave it up 4 years ago. I'm not in the public engagement business anymore. But it doesn't take that much time to write a plan. And with all the $2 or $3 million we've spent so far, we should have had some outline of public engagement plan. I mean, it needs to be more than 7 meetings to start with, and we need to fully engage the public like there. But when you look at the outline, when it includes things like a branding manual, I mean, first of all, the name Pure is misleading to the public. But the other thing is that I would highly encourage you to modify this this document before you come back, because we've given you some feedback. You heard some feedback from the public this morning. You're going to meet tomorrow with some stakeholders. Let's modify it and show us how you've listened to the public. Let's start now. One of the things in the marketing of it is it's been presented as, I think, to the neighborhood groups, the plan to drought-proof Tampa. That's not true at all. That's not the purpose of this. The real reason why we need it is because the state is forcing us to do it. There's no other justifiable reason for it. That's an aspiration of maybe your department or the water department, but that's not a requirement. That's not what we have to do. And I would encourage my colleagues to Google. The mayor said to me, I guess you don't think that water is the most important resource of the future. Yes, it is. That's why I helped create Tampa Bay Water in 1998. If you Google it, Tampa Bay is unlike every other region in the world. We're a case study in the world because we don't have the water problems that other areas have. This, if it's put together in the wrong way, threatens to pull that apart. And if you look at the needs of our water supply, we don't need 50 million gallons a day. The region's not going to need it for 100 years. We need to be looking at the real problems. If we can get DEP to provide an extension, honestly, then we can sit down and have an honest discussion. What do we do with this resource? The mayor says it's wasted. Okay, you say that it's got nutrients, yes, but you also said it's cleaner than the Hillsborough River. So let's find out what the right solutions are, and let's be honest about the marketing, not say things like, let's drought-proof Tampa or whatever. Let's say we've got these resources. We're trying to work within these constraints to figure out what we're going to do. What's the best use of this? And what's best for ratepayers, what's best for the environment? And I hope also in the document that you'll put some parameters around what the communication firms can do. Because if we start seeing documents and videos that are selling this to the public and saying, oh, look, drinking potty water is a good idea, it's going to be very offensive to the public. It needs to be honest engagement. And the last thing I'll say is on the alternatives are not all-inclusive, and they're not right. There's no reason the city of Tampa should have to spend $2 to $6 billion on this. And that's your numbers that your consultants presented to us. So let's figure out what the alternatives are where our ratepayers don't have to pay anything. If we can sell it to Polk County or Tampa Bay Water or Pasco County or whomever and make money on it for the next 20, 30 years, why wouldn't we do that?
We're having those conversations right now, Councilman. Yep.
All right, thank you.
And the reason we haven't done any public engagement is because the council asked us not to do any public engagement until we did an analysis on all the alternatives. So we didn't want to go out and do the public engagement on just the select few. We wanted to wait until we did all of them.
The first conversation after February should have been, look, we did the analysis and here are 5 alternatives. What do you all think about the 5 alternatives? The first I saw them was when I saw the document a few days ago. And you know, if you guys keep blindsiding us, that we'll have conversations like this. Let's have the discussions offline and try to work collaboratively to get this done, work with the community to get things done. Thank you.
I just want to say, and it's nothing to do, but just to set the tone, in 1998, the city of Tampa offered to sell water. $1998. Those you have to look at when you see a sport document this big, and I'm not for or against sports. All you have to look at about 6 pages of what it says. And in those 6 pages, you better hold on to your straps because you won't have even pants on when they finish with you. And that's the same thing that's happening in a different area, in a different tone, the way they do it. here's the contract, 2038. Well, they don't tell you that in that contract, there's another thing that says you can never get out unless if there's debt. So guess what? You're never going to get out if there's debt. So I have consistently voted against the budget, and I've done it 1 or 2 years in a row, because that contract has 2 endings. And I want whoever precedes us, me especially, they have to then have a litigation maybe somewhere in 2038 when I'm long gone and dried like one of those nuts falling off a tree. That's what I'm looking at, for somebody to have an avenue of success of talking about something that happened 30 or 40 years before they got there. That's all I try to do. And if you ask me, do I belong there? None of us belong there. And elected officials sitting down with the pros that are the ones that are there. We need the people from every water district, their engineers, and their people who know water and everything else to sit on that board so that they can report back to the elected officials. The elected officials do not know what those individuals are doing that have been 20 and 30 years producing water. And I hate to say it, I admit it. Now let somebody else admit it that's on that board.
Thank you, Mr. Rimmer. I'd like to make it quite clear to the public that we are 7 different council people, and we all have our own opinions. We have but 1 vote each, and the opinion of one does not mean the opinion as this body as a whole. Agenda item number 6, file number CM 670. Chief O'Connor.
Good afternoon, City Council. Chief Mary O'Connor here to speak to you today about victim advocacy. I'm also met here with Elliot, Patricia, and Jay from various community programs that also represent the support of victim advocacy. When I speak about victim advocacy, I don't only speak about living victims that were victims of crimes. I also speak about the family members and the parents and the loved ones that are left behind, because the advocacy means just as much to the living victims as it does to these family members here that lost their children to gun violence. When I was first appointed as chief a few months ago, I identified that there was a critical need to bridge the gap between police services and other services that are available to victims. As we are all very well aware, mental health in our community and wellness for all is paramount to our success and should be a priority to all. However, the process for victims to get services is complex and really can use that person to bridge that gap. There is no a current program at TPD that has specific for victim advocacy, and that's what we are looking to implement. The obvious implementation of the program is built on relationships and partnerships. That's why I think our employee will begin with leading the effort in coordinating services with our victims. The victim advocate can work hand in hand with our local and federal partners, the state attorney's office, the U.S. attorney's office. Part of victim advocacy I think is important to highlight is the explanation of what's next for victims. I think there's a lot of mystery sometimes in the criminal justice system. I'm going to let the individuals behind me speak in just a moment about how important it is for them as well. But there's also external programs that we can bridge these victims to, like clergy. The Franciscan Center locally here in Tampa does a good program where they do trauma recovery for victims, and then also grief counseling and other types of services. So we are in the process of getting the project up and running. There's a tremendous amount of grant funding that is coming out of Washington for services such as these. We recently applied for a community-based violence intervention and prevention grant. It's a $1.5 million grant. Only 5 police departments in the, 5 cities in the United States will be granted the money. We will know by October 1st, but some of the money is earmarked for victim advocacy services and support of groups like Rise Up for Peace and Advocates for Safer Communities that are joined here with me today. If given this grant money, the plan also includes a very comprehensive building of a strategic plan that we can follow step by step with our partners to make sure that we are actually achieving goals and leading towards the improvement of the violence in our community. Like I said, there's a lot of money coming out of Washington right now, and I think with a victim advocate position, we can have someone advocate, if you will, to look for that type of funding and, obviously reach out for it. We do have grant writers for the city that can help us with that. Some of the other things that the victim advocate can do, like I was talking about, bridging those gaps, is working with the Attorney General's office, which does have a fund specifically available for compensation of victims, whether it be relocation expenses or transportation expenses or funeral expenses. There are, again, grief counseling. There's assistance with replacement of important property or papers that may have been lost in the victimization of the crimes. There's a plethora of programs, but I think the most important thing is to know where that gap is between us and the programs, and that's where victim advocacy is so important. The second thing that's on today's agenda for the motion was a monument dedicated specifically to crime victims, and I brought my friends here to speak about the monument. I think what we as a police department would like to do is partner with our groups in our communities that are so dedicated to victims of violence to visualize and come up with what we think the monument would look like, and then turn it over to our Arts and Cultural Committee to work with them to actually build the monument. Any questions for me?
Council, I may.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for that presentation and for all the work gone into this and whatnot. I see a lot of my friends and our friends behind you there. I thank you, Chief, for your excellent emphasis on victims of crime. It's one of the main issues of our time as we read about escalating crime in a lot of our communities. All those crimes leave behind a victim, which is, I know, the cause of your life, the cause of the life of people in law enforcement, and it's become, through tragedy, the cause of the life of the people who are standing behind you through personal involvement. As elected officials, victims of crime have got to be on our mind always, and they've got to be part of our conversation. And I know for this council, that's something that we're doing, but it's got to be true in all of our municipalities and all of our cities. All too often, people in our positions, I think, don't often talk about victims of crime the way that we should. We miss that issue. We miss that issue. And like I've said before, how you deal with a victim of crime, how you deal with somebody who has been battered, or somebody whose son or daughter has been taken from them, murdered, etc., that's a social justice issue. That is an issue of social justice, because a lot of these folks who are living in communities that are battered by crime are living in communities that are often left behind by states, by countries, by cities, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I always say that the issue of victims of crime, it affects all of us. It's on all of us to do our part to stand with victims of crime. I don't care if you live in Tampa, Palms, Hunters Green, Bayshore, Palmacia, wherever it may be, it's certainly something that's on all of us. So what I'm looking for, and you're on this, Chief, and I thank you for this, is really twofold, which is, number one, some sort of, like you said, a memorial, and I'm 100% supportive of what you're doing with that. I'd love to see that. Then number two is some sort of the formal victims of crime program, which would be multifaceted, which is, number one, like you said, talking about the monetary support. We do have wonderful programs out there with the Attorney General's office, state attorneys, and others. But when those programs can't fit the bill, having a line item set aside, right, to be able to help and assist for those situations, for those more acute crimes. Like Mr. Johnson always says, he says that when a loved one of your family dies or leaves you, the rent is still due. And also, I'd like to see something, maybe in working with our the Franciscan Center or some group like that, for mental health counseling for victims of crime. So I thank you and all the people standing behind you for all your hard work and for your life's passion on this issue. And I thank council for supporting this. I'll be making the motion at the end, if I may. Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
Councilman Miranda. I want to thank the chief and all of those around the program. And when you listen and hear things on television, you see a closure. There really is never closure. There's a feeling that you're bringing something, but closure doesn't sit there. And I can only speak, many years ago, I had an uncle that went to deliver something in the post office at night. He was shot in the back and killed. And that same night, the same guy who shot him was killed in another bar walking in. They just cut him in half with a shotgun. So, do I understand it all? No. And I don't know what words are available for yourselves and for others like you who have gone through this tragedy. It's never closure. It's day in and day out. You think of what if, how come, why me? All those things come to mind. And during the lifespan, you must think of that 10 million times. And all of us would do the same thing you're doing. So thank you for holding up. I think I've seen one or two of you on television, and you look better in person. Thank you very much for being who you are.
Councilman Carlson.
Thank you, Chief. I know that from the first presentation you gave, you said one of your goals is to reduce the violent crime rate, and so I know you're working hard to do it, and please let us know what we need to do to try to resolve that. I think this morning's move approval of the contracts was one thing to make sure we have the best people out to continue to do that. To the family members here, we've heard some or all of your stories before, and as a father, it breaks my heart to hear your stories. And I just want to give you my personal commitment. If there's something you think I should be doing to help you, please call me. I've talked to some of you before, but call me if you want to talk about solutions, and we'll work with the police department and any other department to try to fix this, because we don't want any other families to have to go through what you've gone through.
Councilman Maniscalco.
And thank you, Councilmember Vieira, for bringing this up, and thank you, Chief, for your presentation and your hard work and your dedication. I cannot understand the magnitude of your suffering. When we say there are no words, we just don't know what you've gone through and so many other people, and no one else should have to go through this. So I hope that we continue all working together, where we're here to support you and everyone else that's not here, and that we can make this community a safer place, but also know that we have your back, and that you're not alone, and that the city and others are here for you. So thank you.
Anyone else? Chief, thank you for this. Councilman Vera, thank you for bringing this forward. When a person uses a knife or a gun and takes a life, they're not only ruining their lives, but they're affecting so many other people, families, friends. Hopefully the motion that Councilman Vieira is going to make, and your help, Chief, and all of your help, may convince one person not to pull out that gun or pull out that knife, so that we can save so many more people. Thank you. Councilman Vieira, do you want to make a motion?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Let me I guess a sense of counsel. I mean, there's just to have it returned back to us in the budget. For the monetary support program that I mentioned before for victims of crime, and then for a mental health program to be worked with either the Franciscan Center or an institution like that, to be placed in the budget to the extent that it needs to be this year. And heck, let's have it come back to us for review in December.
I have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. I'm sorry? What date would you like that, Councilman Vieira?
Second week in December, if that's fine.
December 15th.
December 15th?
Sounds good. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Regular session. All right, we have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 7, file CM 21-71-673.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For the record, my name is Brenda McKenzie, and I'm the Director of Workforce Partnerships here at the city. And apprenticeships are just a proven way of a path forward. It's a proven path forward, and it's honestly been an honor to serve as part of the implementation team for this ordinance. The ordinance encourages participation in state-registered programs. And the benefit of state-registered programs are twofold. One, it ensures that we have the talent that we need, that it's trained and ready to go. And two, it also provides economic mobility for that individual, which is key. The state of Florida vets the programs to make sure that they meet industry standards and that the individuals are ready to go forward day one. Implementing the ordinance, our team has been working closely with the Department of Education and their director, Kathleen Wheeler, as well as the regional coordinators. The state has been helpful in sharing information on existing programs that are here and also offering to help individual companies that want to develop their own apprenticeship programs to fit their special needs. The city has made these programs available to the public, both for individuals looking to participate in apprenticeship programs and also the companies wanting to know what apprenticeship programs are actually out there. And those are available on the Tampa Works, TPAWRX website. The City Center at Hannah is the first project to fall under this ordinance. Per the ordinance, 12% of the labor hours have to go towards apprenticeships. There is a nuance to that in the ordinance, as you know, because it's your ordinance, that those hours, the denominator takes into consideration where actual apprentices exist, and there are some nuances in that. So we're working with the state and the construction company to make sure that the denominator were set on their methodology so that when we present the numbers to you, we're comfortable that it's really meeting the actual numbers. We've been working jointly with the infrastructure team and the developer and the contractor to make sure that we're compliant with our submission. And we're currently refining numbers to make sure that that denominator is explainable and understandable both to us and then to you. We anticipate that we should have these resolved within the next week to 10 days. And I'm happy to say that next week, before you for consideration, will be a recommendation for an owner's rep for this project. That owner's rep will include both construction management, review of EBO, and the apprenticeship ordinance compliance as well. The administration continues to develop opportunities to raise awareness through fairs, focus groups, working with existing organizations to make sure that individuals know the benefits of participating in these programs. With me today is Brandon Falsini, who is with DPR Construction, in case you have specific questions on their efforts with apprenticeships.
I guess.
Hang on one second, Councilman Vieira. We have somebody else that's going to speak, and then I'll go to you first because you are the maker of the motion.
Hi. I'm Brandon Fassini with DPR Construction, and I represent the general contractor, and I'm here to represent our client, which is the City of Tampa, and Brenda McKenzie. And if you have any questions regarding the apprenticeship, I would gladly give you the information that we have available at the time.
Okay, Councilman Vieira, you're the maker of the motion. I'm going to go to you first.
Yes, sir. I mean, I have no questions. I made this motion, I recall, just to highlight what this apprenticeship ordinance is going to be doing in this project. This large project is really the first demonstration of this apprenticeship ordinance, which I know we're all very, very proud of. It does a lot to produce a pathway to the middle class for a lot of our young people here in the city of Tampa, and this is certainly going to be one of them. But as was indicated before, all apprenticeships and all programs that participate in this program have got to be state certified apprenticeship programs because we want to make sure that we get the best quality, that it's sanctioned and approved by the state of Florida. And that is apparently what is happening here, according to what I'm hearing. So no, just that's it at this time. Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
When making an apprenticeship program, what types of things are required of an apprenticeship program? Can anyone just kind of slap one together, or are there I'm just asking, are there regulations? Are there certain requirements?
Yeah, that's why it's really important that the council chose state-approved programs, as that they follow DOL, the federal standards in terms of each individual curriculum. And it really is rigorous. It's not like a 3-month program and you're out. These are 2-3-year programs, successive programs, that at the end of the program, the individual will have on-the-job training, which is so important, as well as classroom hours, which a lot of times people don't realize that there's a classroom component to this, so that when they're finished, they're able to work on any construction site, they're certified, people can trust that the training is sound, and they're really ready to move forward. It's truly a pathway to the middle class that doesn't require college.
So then I guess my question for the contractor is, so if it takes 2 to 3 years, so you guarantee employment for the apprentice for 2 to 3 years?
I wouldn't say we necessarily guarantee employment, but the program is established to be a 2 to 3 year program, and that's obviously based off the performance of the employee. We hire on that particular person. In some cases, like for our particular apprenticeship program, we have employees that have already worked for us for a couple of years. So it is the intent that they stay on for 2 to 3 years and complete that program. But in theory, that necessarily might not work out every time. But it's our goal to support and uplift that employee to complete a 2 to 3 year program.
And what are the average wages that you give to these apprentices?
The wages depend. I know that's not a great answer, but like just industry standard, a lot of the apprentices are entry level, right? So that's in the construction industry, probably well and beyond the minimum wage, just given the supply and demand that's in the industry right now. But that really depends on what trade they are, if they're a carpenter, if they're a pipe fitter, if they're a steel worker. So it does vary.
Okay. So you said you're coming back to us next week and you'll have some more information. The information I'm looking for is the amount of the average wages for the different types of apprenticeship programs for this project. I want to know how many people are in each program, and I really want to know how long those people have been in the program, working for that particular contractor. And I'm still a little confused about what happens. Say we're talking specifically about the HANA project. So what happens after a year? If the HANA project is done, how do those people get then the rest of their education?
Right. So that's why it's important when we're using that list for the state-approved programs, it's usually an entity that can provide connections for it. They're a provider of labor, and they're going to train that labor to do that work. So in this case, DPR is self-performing for some of theirs, so they are saying, I'm connecting with this individual, we're hiring this individual. They're going to have an opportunity to earn and learn over this period and continue with us. So ideally, when they finish the HANA job, they'll go on to the next project.
Yeah, that would be, what I would hope too. But I'm just, again, curious how often that happens. And so just a little more information on that. But thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Just a question for each of you, maybe. The way the ordinance is written, it's state-approved apprenticeship programs, and some of them are run by unions or involve companies that are connected to unions, and some of them are non-union companies that have certification. So a question we often get is, can we provide preference to one or the other? I think I know the answer to that, but maybe each of you could simply answer, like, how would you make a decision between a union subcontractor and a non-union subcontractor? Are there any pros and cons of the apprenticeship programs?
As it relates to the apprentice ordinance, we're agnostic. We are looking for people or organizations to invest in individuals and do the full length of the program, so that when that individual leaves, they really do have a trajectory, a career trajectory that's going to lead them to the next step. So whether it's union or non-union, there are viable programs that cover both, and we're just, based on the ordinance, the contractor must use those.
Yeah, I would echo the same. I mean, we don't have a preference one way or the other, but the unions do have programs that have been around for a while, so it's very easily accessible to tap into, like certified and tried and true apprenticeship programs, which is definitely a plus. Some of the non-union shops, this is newer for them, and they have apprenticeship programs, and some of them aren't state approved, and there are a few that actually have state approved. So is that a plus in complying with the apprenticeship ordinance? It is, but we also consider the qualifications and just general competitiveness of the contractor as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilman Vieira?
Yes, sir. No, nothing. I did want to say, though, that, you know, that was one of the major points when I was working with the contractors and the labor organizations and talking about this. And before, our good friends, our city legal Andrea Zellman, who did such a great job, and others in writing this ordinance, was to make sure that this applies to state certified only. If my memory serves me right, St. Petersburg did not mandate state certified. So that was a big concern with ours. We wanted to make sure that all programs that were subject to this ordinance would be of the highest caliber, and state certified obviously approves of that. So that's it. So nothing further at this time. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Agenda item number 8, file number E 2022-8, chapter 19 and 26.
Yes, good afternoon, Council. Sia Wynn, Administrative Neighborhood and Community Affairs. I submitted a memo regarding the littering fines. The request was to investigate raising the fines to $500, to a $500 violation, and I would like to know if you have any questions.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much for the report.
Yes, sir.
I looked it over. I spoke with one of the attorneys, and the number $450 was what I saw and was prominent. You know, we have several people that come out on a regular basis, just the council, but then I have so many that contact my office. I've gone on the river with others. I've seen firsthand, you know, the litter that we have throughout the city, West Tampa, East Tampa, South Tampa. You know, people are very reckless and how they just throw stuff out the window or just drop it wherever they see fit. But I don't think that the general public and the offenders or the people that have no regard for putting the trash in the proper place, they don't think that we have any kind of enforcement. You know, they figure, you know, police only give out speeding tickets. They don't give out littering tickets. Or code enforcement just, you know, it's not in their purview and not part of their job to do this. But from what I see on the books and reading your memo, $450. And I know there could be a misconception of we're targeting a certain demographic or a group, but we can say that for speeding tickets or red light tickets or whatever it is. We have those types of enforcement for those other avenues, and litter is a problem, has been a problem for a long time. We see what goes into our stormwater system, gets thrown out into the river. I went kayaking recently with somebody because they wanted me to see firsthand. They kayak, you can easily pick up trash and see what is picked up on a regular basis. And it's amazing what ends up in our waterway. I want, and I know the administration, the mayor has wanted to be tough on littering. We did christen the littering boat most recently, which was a worthy investment, and we see the positive response and work that boat has, you know, in the amount of trash that it's picked up. I think this would just piggyback and strengthen more the mayor's vision, and I think perhaps what council would like to do, and send the message that we're tough on trash, tough on littering. We talk about water a lot, but I want to make sure that our waterways are clean, our storm drains are clean, our streets are clean. It's a bad look. So what I'd like to do is, if I have to make a motion, is that we set first offense littering fines at $450. in order to send a strong message to the community that, you know, we take this very, very seriously. If you have any response, you know, before I continue with the motion.
No, you continue, please, yeah.
No, I mean, if there's, what do you think? I don't think it's unreasonable. I know speeding tickets are around $200 and up. I know red light camera tickets are expensive. Perhaps this is the kind of message that we need to send, that we take this seriously. I've requested more signs for visibility. I know there's budget constraints for that and whatnot, but at least if we can use what's already on the books at $450, and if we have to shift it over or apply that to code enforcement and police officers where they have, it's within their jurisdiction. It's up to the discretion of the officer if they do want to just issue a warning or say, hey, you know, give the ticket flat out. If it's something egregious, you know, not somebody throws a napkin out the window, don't hit them for $450, but if somebody is seen, witnessed by code enforcement or police dumping whatever, something significant out the window, that they should, you know, be hit with this type of fine, being that the $450 was already there in the code. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Councilman Simone Savino, Assistant City Attorney. I just am standing up to join OSEA to just reemphasize, we do have section 19-53 on our books. As a first in every offense, it's $450. So it does exist, and it's already out there. We hear you, and it is something that absolutely code enforcement and TPD can enforce.
So there's really no need for a motion. It would just be a motion to suggest that police and code enforcement better monitor, or not monitor, but if they witness people, you know, causing these offenses, that they know that it's within their jurisdiction and their discretion, that they can issue a $450 ticket.
Yes, sir.
So that's really it. It's on the books, and there's no need for, you know, anything further legally, because that's it. So, Chief Bennett, what do you think? Can a memo go out to code enforcement and TPD to say, hey, if you see people, you know, as a police officer sitting in their car writing a report, and they witness somebody, you know, being ridiculous, throwing something major out, you know, where it's a problem.
Understood. John Bennett, Chief of Staff. Just wanted to supply a comment that I know Councilman Goods and I are very familiar with. It's called a legal bulletin, and I see Megan in place, and I'm sure her wheels are turning on this. A lot of times we prompt the officers, whether it be code and translated to law enforcement, to use those legal bulletins as a call to action. So I'm certain that Chief O'Connor and Megan's office at PD will put it out, put the training out, and make sure that's the top of the list, because we know about the priorities coming through council, and the mayors also want this as a priority. So I think it's on the books. We just didn't make it more actionable.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So it's a simple fix to something that's already in place, and it's just communication. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Councilman Goods.
What I wouldn't want to see, and Councilman Maniscalco, you have littering and you have illegal dumping. It's two different things. Littering, illegal dumping. Illegal dumping, that's criminal, and that comes with arrest and heftier fines. Littering's a little bit different, and I'm going to tell you, being a former police or retired police officer, having police officers just start giving tickets to littering, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that to be a problem. I can see a warning, but out there just issuing tickets, I know how cops are, and sometimes you have some supervisors that are saying, well, I'm not getting tickets there, and I don't want to start something. So I will be careful about just saying, go out and start issuing tickets. I mean, you can look at warnings, but I know how communities are. I think, with anything, when you talk about littering, I've been in a police car and I've seen people throw something out the car. I pull them over. Hey, you're not gonna throw that in your community. Why put it over here? And people pretty get just the midst of it. It may not be a warning ticket given, but it's kind of like a discretionary thing with that. I mean, when you talk about illegal dumping, it's a little different. Somebody dumping a bunch of trash in the alleyways, and you should be taking it to the dump. Because literally, somebody else who you did that job for already paid you for that. You charged them for that, but now they take that extra cash and dump it into the alleyway or behind some old churches and things like that. That's what happens. So I'm all for making sure we've got a plan in place, but I just think that it's got to be a warning level system and not just aggressively saying we're going to just go out there and start doing a lot of warnings, especially with the police. That could turn bad, I think. Just my opinion, but I support you, but I just think that could turn bad quickly.
Anyone else? Councilman Carlson.
I just wonder, first of all, littering is bad in the cities that monitor and keep littering from happening. I think are some of the best run cities. But I want to ask specifically, is there any special fine for throwing lit cigarettes out the door? A few years ago, I was at a stoplight and I saw a Prius in front of me, presumably somebody who cared about the environment, roll the window down and throw a lit cigarette out the window. And especially during droughts, you have all this dry stuff out there, and then you throw a lit cigarette out. It seems like there should be higher fines for that because of the public hazard of it.
Simone Savino, Assistant City Attorney. I'm unaware of an ordinance that covers a lit cigarette. That doesn't mean that Florida statutes doesn't speak to it. I'm unaware of anything currently with the city.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Might I suggest that we start with a couple-month program of warnings? I think it would be great if we could come back in 2 months with some data saying, hey, we pulled this many people over and warned them about it. Because in conjunction with that, you need a public relations campaign, because if you start handing people tickets, they're going to be really angry. Because there was no, I mean, while it may be on the books, it's something that we haven't focused on. It's something that's a huge problem in the city of Tampa. We need to couple this with education and focus. If we don't couple it with education, you're just going to have a bunch of really angry people who are then going to litter out of spite. So I would really love to see a more stair-step pattern here with let's start with some warnings, and let's start with some more signage. Let's start with a PR campaign that gets people out, maybe encouraging trash pickup among the community, but definitely something a little bit better. We talk about PR. This is where using city's PR or hiring a PR firm that has specialized in this. That's something that I could wholeheartedly support, but we need to definitely step it up.
Yes, ma'am. So when we do implement a new program such as this, we go through education and awareness, a time period for that, then we go into the warnings, and then we go into the actual enforcement piece. We don't just start just heavy-handed with writing a citation. So yes.
Is there a program in place, or
No,
is that something? Okay, so
yeah. So whenever we do new programs, like when I was over in the parking division and we did something new, that was the process. Instead of just putting up a sign and saying, okay, we're going to write a citation.
So how long does that take to start a program like this?
Councilwoman Hurtak, I'm going to have to come back with. I don't want to overcommit my.
If you were going to guess, like when you did parking ones, how long did it take you to put it together? Just
Putting
like
it
6
together
months,
was one thing, but putting it together, just getting staff to put it together. However, when we did the warnings, the education was probably about 2 weeks, and then the warnings was about a 2-week process as well before we started writing the tickets.
Okay, but I mean planning for that. Like, how much planning did it take?
We can probably have the planning done in a matter of 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well then,
if I can come back, maybe give us some time, maybe 6 weeks or so to come back from planning to implementation, warning, and all of that. About 2 months. That'll give us enough time to collect some substantial data.
Councilwoman Maniscalco, is it okay if I make that motion, or would you like to make that motion? Since it's
September 15th. If you want, I'll second it if you want.
Yeah, I would really love for you to come back September 15th with a plan, so that we really can get get going on the trash problem.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Councilman Miranda.
I've been listening, so I'm reading something else, but I think you gotta make sure that you identify what you want. You say, I wanna make it, you gotta say why. I'm not trying to be an attorney.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm still learning, so I always appreciate constructive feedback. So we want to make a littering, to create a littering program to stop people. Anti-littering. Anti-littering program to help keep the city cleaner, and yeah, to basically just to come forward to us with a plan for how we can start implementing this and encouraging the city to be a cleaner place.
Yep.
Second,
Absolutely.
just a friendly amendment. In the meantime, can we
Then
issue?
we'll be voting on your amendment. Then
And-
we'll be voting on your amendment.
Okay, and if we could issue warnings in the meantime and get the ball rolling? Not tickets, but warnings, so
I accept that. That's a
people
good
start,
amendment.
Yeah, I will say that in some of our staff meetings, the mayor made it crystal clear, education first, warning second, citations as necessary. And I will say that over the years, I tried to do this back in the mid-2000s, like 2008, and the systems, the platforms didn't handle it. But now we have a robust warning tracking system. So I feel like the legal bulletin, that TPD will work with city legal to get out, we'll have that call to action in that order, education, warning. And I agree with Councilman Goods that, we want to change behavior in the easiest way possible for the community. It starts with education, and I'm sure we'll get out some vignettes and videos and actually do some mimic scenarios for the public to see that this isn't acceptable first. Those two things can run concurrently, the warning process and the education process. So, but I agree with Ms. Nguyen, we should be able to do that pretty quick and then be able to bring some stats back and some of the programmatic pieces by September. And then we've asked to probably have 2 different public safety workshop placements, one in May and one maybe in November, and use those to sync up some of the initiatives council's asked for in a public safety space. And this would be one of those, all right?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Goods.
just as a final note, most of you people that litter are your walkers. Ain't really coming out of cars. Or your kids. Kids walking and they don't, my thing is, maybe it should be trash receptacles, throughout certain areas or some of these stores having trash cans and things like that. And I say that because former city school board member Schamberger had called me earlier, knew it was coming up, and she said, because she dealt with the schools, kids are walking, that's where a lot of your litter is coming from. So just food for thought for the administration. Maybe you look at something with trash cans in areas, and especially high areas that you see a lot of trash.
Thank you, Councilman Goods. I was going to make that point when I got the opportunity. It's tough to make good laws for bad things that people do. And what I mean by that is exactly what Councilman Goods says. Some of the areas that I drive around in the city of Tampa, where there's the most garbage on the streets, there is no trash receptacles. So maybe it might be important for the city of Tampa to put trash receptacles at those places. I know it's tough to carry a bag or something that has food after you've eaten it 5 or 6 blocks without wanting just to say, I'm going to put it down right here, without a garbage can. So we can help. I also have other questions. I play devil's advocate with myself all the time. Who enforces these violations? What happens when somebody doesn't pay these violations? Much like traffic tickets, now we're seeing that if somebody doesn't pay their traffic ticket, their license gets suspended, they can't get to work. How are they going to pay for the traffic? Just a devil's advocate that I play by myself.
Simone Savino, Assistant City Attorney. So these are civil citations. They're in our code per table 23.5-5. So the table 23.5-5 lays out 4 different sections of violations. 1953 that we're talking about here is a category 4 violation. That's why it carries such a high fine of $450. If someone doesn't pay that, this will go to the county court, and it will be basically like similar to a parking ticket. You can go down there and contest it, or you can go down there and pay it as well. So they're similar in nature to a parking ticket, but they're enforced by code enforcement. They're also enforced by the police department, TPD.
Thank you very much. We have an amended motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Was that just the amendment of the motion?
No, because he amended the motion.
Yeah.
So once he amends the motion, then the amendment takes over as the motion. Agenda item number 9. Was amended by Councilman Maniscalco.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Correct. Agenda item number 9, file number CM 22-75491.
Good afternoon. Excuse me, go ahead.
Can I just set this up like?
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to say, there's a lot that we could say on this topic, and we'll talk about what the topic is in a second. A lot we could say on this topic. We've all been briefed by the police department, and they've advised us to narrow the conversation for the sake of protection of the Jewish community. And so the police department will say what they can, and then if anybody would like to have a longer discussion outside of this, please call us. Thanks.
Megan,
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilman Vieira.
I also wanted to let you know that Mr. Joe Probasco was here to speak on the board of the JCC Federation.
And I'm going to ask him to speak after the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Chairman, Council, Megan Newcomb, Assistant City Attorney, here to address agenda item number 9, along with Captain Blasioli from the Tampa Police Department, who is in charge of our Criminal Investigative Division. We did provide a memorandum to Council that laid out what the police department has been doing in response to the anti-Semitic attacks here in the city of Tampa, and we are available to address any additional questions regarding any of those issues.
Councilman Maniscalco.
So, in regards to this topic, anti-Semitic attacks and communications, other events that have taken place and whatnot, I'm Catholic, but my wife is Jewish. My 2 stepdaughters were raised in the Jewish faith. Some of my closest friends are Jewish. Some of my family's closest friends were Jewish. I heard from friends of mine in Europe over the weekend of what's going on in Tampa. And that's how I, heard of more recent things. So it's something that I take very personally because the people that I love and care the most are Jewish, and I want them to live in a safe city. I want them to feel safe. My now family, because I recently got married, and I take this very, very seriously. I know that the Jewish community is very strong. Historically, the foundation of this community is built with the help of so many people and many in the Jewish community. So whatever TPD is doing, whatever way we can assist, I know we have to, limit our comments and whatnot, and we can speak offline, but I appreciate you coming out, and I appreciate Councilman Carlson's motion to bring this up. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilman Goods.
I received a lot of calls on this, and of course we want to make sure that people aren't attacked, make sure that people feel safe coming to Tampa, and we have a lot of venues, make sure people that want to patronize those venues are safe. So I don't know what the police department is doing or what are the rules in reference to this type of behavior on some city properties and things like that. So if you can maybe give the community viewers a breast so they'll know and wonder why isn't this council not doing anything, and why is the administration not doing anything, what are the rights that we have to refuse, or if we don't have the right to refuse?
Yes, sir, Councilman. First and foremost, thank you for your time. And the police department is doing everything that it can to address anti-Semitic attacks here in the city of Tampa. And part of that is being in communication with other law enforcement agencies throughout our region and throughout the country, as well as organizations such as the Anti-Defamation League and even our local synagogues, temples, and the JCC. So we are in constant communication, and we are monitoring any of this type of activity to keep track of it, and then also if there is any criminal behavior associated with it, obviously to investigate those crimes. Speaking to your specific question, Councilman, you know, as we all know, the First Amendment protects all types of political speech, and the courts have held that even anti-Semitic, specifically the wearing of anti-Semitic clothing, uniforms, the swastika, is protected speech under the First Amendment. So we as a government, we as a police department cannot limit people's speech based upon the content of their speech, as offensive and disgusting as the speech may be. That really is a bedrock of the First Amendment, and it really is a basic tenet that all of us in the city have to enforce. And certainly on public property, the right to free speech cannot really be limited in any type of way. That's different on private property. It's also different, as I'm sure you all are aware, in different types of public forums, public governmental property. But sidewalks, parks, and the streets are what are known as traditional public forums, and any type of protected First Amendment speech cannot be limited really in any manner in those particular arenas.
Well, thank you for that, because we had a lot of calls of what can we do, what we can't do. So I want to make sure that since we have legal for the police department here, so the public can know what the city's obligation is and so we're not in violation of somebody's rights, even though we don't want that type of behavior on our properties, you know?
Understood, and really what the courts have said is that the remedy for hateful speech or speech that is against one's values would be speech against it, so more speech. So really what we can do and what we're trying to do is allow anyone and everyone who wishes to express their First Amendment rights a safe place to do so, and then hopefully that will allow, you know, everyone to express their rights, and then us as a democracy to continue. But that's the bedrock really of the First Amendment.
Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, just in my comments, I want to say I'm 100% behind the Jewish community. This council is 100% behind the Jewish community. The city's 100% behind the Jewish community, and we won't tolerate any kind of threats in our community. I was just in Europe a bit in the last couple of months, and I went to synagogues that formerly had large congregations, and there's almost nobody living in those cities anymore. There were whole areas of towns that had large Jewish populations, and many of them were murdered, and many of them moved to other countries. We need to protect everybody, and we value you know, our Jewish community. It's a very strong community here. You know, there are brothers, sisters, relatives, friends. I grew up Christian. My son is Christian, and the JCC allowed my son to go to JCC growing up, so he learned the dreidel song before he learned some of the Christmas songs. And you know, these are the kinds of things we need to do to try to understand each other. And if people hear of threats or acts of violence, please call us, call the police, call 911 first, but or call the non-emergency hotline, but call us if those things happen. But I would say, not to put words in your mouth, but for the same reason that we nowadays ask media not to mention the names of criminals because they seek publicity, we may not want to give a free platform to people who want to spread hate and threats. But we want to make sure we tell the Jewish community that we support. And Councilmember Vieira has a resolution that he's going to propose in a minute also. But please talk to us. You know, we're your neighbors, we're your friends. Talk to us. We won't. None of us will tolerate this. We also don't want to provide a free platform to anybody. Thank you.
Anyone else?
And Mr.
Mr. Probasco, I'm sorry, Councilman Vieira, Mr. Probasco want to speak now? I thought he was going to speak on item 11.
What he can, my good friend Joe can go before me. I have no problem there.
Mr. Probasco, are you online?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here
He's
in the
there.
audience. I've still got
He's
you
there.
on,
I didn't see Joe back there.
online.
I've been hiding.
Yes, you have, behind Joe Robinson.
Yes, but it sounds just based on the comments I'm hearing, we're all on the collective same page, so that's always a positive way to start a conversation. But good afternoon, everyone. Members of City Council, my name is Joe Probasco, and I'm the immediate past president of the Tampa Jewish Community Centers and Federation. I also have the privilege of serving on the Board of Trustees of the Jewish Federations of North America. I'm joined today by my colleague, Mark Siegel, Director of Strategic Initiatives at our JCC. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to address City Council today to express our personal support and the support of the Tampa Jewish Community Centers and Federation for Councilman Luis Vieira's resolution condemning anti-Semitism. And while I've shared my official titles, I feel it's also important to share that my wife Eliane and I have called the City of Tampa our home for over 20 years and chosen Tampa as the place to raise our three usually wonderful children. Our children are being educated in the public schools of our city, and we've been members of Congregation Shaare Zedek for those same 20 years. Simply put, Tampa is our home. I share this because today when we speak about the Jewish community, we speak of the Tampa community. The two are simply inseparable. Our Jewish community is called Tampa home for the better part of the last 150 years. And for those that share an interest in Tampa history, our city proudly elected Herman Glogowski, a Jewish German immigrant, as the 21st, 23rd, 25th, and 27th mayor of Tampa, with his first term starting in 1886. You see, us Jews in Tampa, we go way back. We are your neighbors, we are your classmates, we are your coworkers, we are your friends. And while I could go on for hours about Jewish Tampa history, the topic we are here to address today is something I never thought we would need to address in our city. You see, the same city that elected a Jewish immigrant as its mayor in 1886 has recently been the city where anti-Semitic graffiti has become commonplace, where flyers containing anti-Semitic propaganda have been distributed in our neighborhoods, and as recently as last Saturday, we witnessed the display of Nazi flags and other anti-Semitic imagery outside of our Tampa Convention Center. And while a full dissertation on the genesis and nuances of anti-Semitism is beyond the scope of my remarks today, I want to share the following. Anti-Semitism is not unique to a particular political party, economic ideology, or culture. We've seen it in the far right, we've seen it in the far left. It's found in capitalist, socialist, communist economies. It's appeared at different times in our history in different places across the globe. But at its core, it is the fear of the other, something not like me. And it lives in places where we stop making space for difference and diversity. And what I can tell you unequivocally is the appearance of anti-Semitism in any community is the first symptom of a disease. The early warning signs of a cancer that, left untreated, will ultimately lead to the breakdown of our precious liberal democracy. So you can understand why we take the issue of anti-Semitism so seriously. And while some might suggest the recent graffiti, flyers, and flags are minor matters, I'm always reminded of Richard Weaver's words when he shared that the trouble with humanity is it forgets to read the minutes of the last meeting. Friends, we've seen this play before. We know how it started. We know how it progressed. We know how it ends if left unchecked. This is our opportunity to intervene early and demand a different outcome for our city. And so as our community navigates this difficult chapter in our Tampa history, we applaud Councilman Vieira for sponsoring this motion and our city council for having a public conversation about such a critical issue to our Tampa community. We are also grateful for the friendship and partnership Mayor Castro has provided our Jewish community in our efforts to shine a light on anti-Semitism, and we are deeply appreciated. And to address questions that were in the prior presentation of Chief of Police O'Connor and the entire Tampa Police Departments for their tremendous around-the-clock support and protection they provide our Jewish community and institutions. They've been absolutely fantastic. And I will conclude my remarks by encouraging each of you to support the resolution condemning anti-Semitism and to use your offices to speak out against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate and extremism, regardless of its origins, whether it's from the far left, the far right, or anywhere in between. Anti-Semitism and hate are dangerous and deadly ideologies. And to remind each of you, it is difference and diversity that makes Tampa beautiful. Let's make sure we keep it this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Vieira, would you like to go ahead and make your motion now?
Sure, Mr. Chair, and if I may, just very briefly, I wanted to thank Mr. Probasco for coming up and for sharing those very touching words. You know, Joe's a colleague, he's a friend, he's just a good person, and I'm honored to know him and honored to call him a friend. So thank you, Joe. And I wanted to again salute Councilman Carlson for putting forth the motion on having a report on how we can fight anti-Semitism in our city, which is companion to the resolution that we're going to be voting on. So thank you for that, Councilman Carlson. And as was said before, you know, there's the First Amendment, right? Which I think it was Hubert Humphrey once said, the right to be heard doesn't mean the right to be taken seriously. But this kind of speech, we got to take seriously, not in terms of the validity of the substance that they're pursuing, but in terms of the danger of it, like all council members and like Mr. Probasco and others have talked about. You know, for that, like Joe said, you have to know your history on anti-Semitism, that there is no form of hate that has a longer line or a trail of oppression, of blood, of torture, of murder than anti-Semitism. That's a fact. That's a fact. But you've also got to know now and how anti-Semitism is not just still with us, but more prevalent today than it's been in a long time. We live in the era of the Tree of Life synagogue shooting. We live in the era of Charlottesville. We see what's happening in the Tampa Bay area. So we certainly have got to use our voice, like we're doing today, and like we're all doing, to oppose anti-Semitism and to call it out. And like Joe said, it happens on the right wing, it happens on the left wing. I happen to be a registered Democrat. It happens in the Democratic Party, happens in the Republican Party. And we've got to call it out. So I hereby, if I may, Mr. Chairman, move the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any discussion? If I may, the events that happened last week, that is not Tampa. That is not who we are. Those actions were not taken by Tampaños. We are a city where it doesn't matter what color your skin is, your national origin, who you love, or what God you believe in, whether you're Christian, Muslim, and especially of the Jewish faith. We are Tampa. We are here for everyone. Roll call vote on the motion.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you all.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Oh,
Councilman Vieira.
thank you. I wanted to also thank Mr. Probasco for helping me with the resolution. We took the congressional resolution that passed almost unanimously in the Congress and revised it just a little bit for the city of Tampa. So thank you. I wanted to publicly thank Joe for that. So thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Agenda item 10, file number CM 22-75492.
Good afternoon, Council of Sia Wynn, Administrator of Neighborhood and Community Affairs. I provided a memo to you regarding the creation of a Veterans Alliance group, and I wanted to know what questions do you have?
Councilman Carlson.
I mentioned this to you yesterday or the day before, but
Yes, sir.
I could be wrong, but it seems like this idea or big push of it came from Councilmember Vieira, which means it came from council, but then it ended up being the mayor's Veterans Alliance. We went through long discussions, very long discussions about the CRB and other things, and the legal department said city council can't just create a committee on their own. It has to have the mayor also. Whether it's a legal issue or just a goodwill issue, it seems like it could be the city's Veterans Committee instead of the mayor's, and then the mayor could get 7 appointees and city council could each get one. I've already had people who contacted me to ask to get appointed to it. Since it's a benign thing, it's only good, it's only positive. They're not doing anything that's controversial or political. it seems like we would try to be as inclusive as possible and make it the city's Veterans Committee.
Yes, sir. If I may, when I wrote up created the memo, I aligned that after, from the diversity, equity, and inclusion lens with all of the other advisory councils. So the mayor's African American Advisory Council, the mayor's Hispanic Advisory Council. But absolutely, if we can open it up and have it as a Veterans Advisory Council. The intent is to get the voice of the veteran community within City Hall so that we can hear the concerns. So we will create that avenue of the framework of what's needed for that.
Could I, Mr. Chair, could I just make a motion to request that, I would like to make a motion that council requests that the mayor and her staff agree to make this a city Veterans Committee or Alliance, and that it have 7 representatives from the mayor and 7 representatives from city council, 1 appointed by each council member.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Vieira. Any discussion?
Yes.
Councilman Goods?
I didn't catch that, Mr. Carlson, so you caught that, and you're right. I mean, I've already had the names of a couple of people that, in my community, that I would like to get on that advisory committee. You know, a lot of times when you go out to the cemeteries in our communities, we don't get the cameras and lights like you do on Columbus and Uptown Mabry. We don't get anybody over to Rest Haven or Memorial Park. So for me, I think it's great that we have this, and we can get somebody like a Melvin Collins who handles the VFW on that side of town, on 140th Street and people. So I would be happy to say we change that to where it's a citizens advisory versus just the mayors. So council's involved with that too.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I agree with everything. The only thing that I'm not bothered by, I mean, logically, when you have an even number of members, you may have a split vote. I think my suggestion would be to change it to an odd number, so you never can get an odd vote unless somebody's not there. In other words, it's 7 and 7 is 14.
So I'll amend my motion, and again, it's a request
Yeah, I understand.
by city council of the mayor
No, I
and
understand.
staff
I'm with you.
To make it the city's Veterans Committee, and that there would be 8, how about 8
Fine.
representatives of the mayor and 7 by city council,
Fine.
1 chosen by each council member.
Chief Bennett, you're getting up.
I am. I just have a small request if it's considered. I agree with the balance of the numbers. But one thing I experience every morning when I walk the streets are homeless veterans. And so if you could put a homeless veteran on there, I'd really appreciate it. And so maybe that would be the one add-on. And whether it came from council or the administration or working with our homeless community, maybe that would be great because we still have homeless veterans on the street.
Are you okay if we do 7,
Fine.
7 and a homeless?
Yeah.
So I amend my motion to be the prior language, but 7 appointed by the mayor, and in addition to the 7, 1 appointed by the mayor who's a homeless veteran, and then 7 appointed by city council, 1 appointed by each.
Councilman Vieira, do you still second the motion?
Yes.
Thank you very much. We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Vieira. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you. Councilman Vieira, do you want to speak more on this? This was your motion.
No, sir, but I do want to speak though, because I'll be honest with you, I'm extremely tired. For the public, I have COVID and I need to go take a nap. So I'm just being honest. So when you have COVID, you have no filter.
You
So
have
I'm gonna
before.
I'm going to have to excuse myself from Tampa City Council if I may. So
Be
thank
careful
you
with
very
that
much.
sleeping. Sleeping ain't good for
gentlemen.
COVID. Be careful with that sleeping.
Yes, sir, Orlando. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys. And excuse me, my early departure.
We're
Thank
still
you.
on the 9:30 item, so we'll be here about 8 o'clock if you're.
Yeah, so if you wake up,
No.
feel better soon.
No. We've
Thank you,
got
guys.
agenda item number 12, which file number CM 22-75495.
Good afternoon, Council. Sia Wynn, Administrative Neighborhood and Community Affairs. I submitted a memo regarding the installation of a memorial bench in Julian B. Lane in honor of Miss Savannah Mathis. who lost her life to gun violence. Her family has decided to have the dedication of the memorial on August 24th. And I just want to know, what questions do you have regarding the memo?
Councilman
I
Goode.
just want to say thank you for doing this. You know, she was up and coming in all aspects. You know, and I just felt it was just robbery not to honor her because she wasn't up and coming. So I'm glad the administration saw fit to we get together and do this for her and her family. And again, the Big John's family has been in our community for a long time.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Number 13, file number CM 22-73220. Well, actually, to be heard with, nope, we already continued that one. So, Ms. Austin.
Good afternoon, Kelly Austin, Human Resources and Talent Development, and Valerie Horton-Rakes, Risk Manager. And we are here on item number 13. Answer any questions.
Comments or questions? Councilman Carlson.
I think we've said this before, but we need a different policy, at least to handle city council and probably the mayor, that doesn't have a $500,000 limit. There needs to be something that starts from a much smaller amount. It looks like we're in an era of litigation, and we all can easily run up $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 in fees. And you know, we saw one of our colleagues hit his limit, and he had to negotiate. So there's state law about when the city can step in, but there should be some insurance to cover elected officials against, it's not a comment on any existing lawsuit, but any possible frivolous lawsuit in the future. Otherwise, we're going to be bombarded by these, and people need to know that city council is protected. City council members only earn $50-something thousand a year. Many of us have other jobs, but it's for a part-time job that doesn't pay very much. I mean, we spend 60 hours a week at least on this, and we get paid $53,000. If we're sued for $100,000 or more, then we've got to figure out how to defend ourselves. And having a political appointee make the decision on whether we're covered or not is just not an acceptable answer.
Well, I wish I would have thought about this sooner, but here's a suggestion perhaps. We could invite our consultant Gallagher to come talk to council about what options are available and what options aren't available, if that would be beneficial.
Is it possible that you could I kind of thought you all would come up with options here, but is it possible that you could have the consultant or someone talk to each of us individually and then come back with some specific proposals? As Councilman Goods always says, don't tell us what we can't do, tell us what we can do. What are our options?
I mean, I think we could arrange that, right? I could work with Gallagher and, you know, coordinate it with each of your offices.
Because we need, maybe there's some level at which the city attorney's office has to weigh in and decide whether they defend or not. But if somebody on the outside knows that the city attorney's not going to kick in until a lawsuit is over, and they can see the financial filings of someone, they're going to hit them. And I'm lucky enough that I can afford to defend myself against false accusations that have been hitting me so far. But not everybody can do that, and the public needs to know that litigation should not be a political weapon.
Ms. Austin, will the 25th of August be enough time for you to get the consultants to come back in and under staff reports?
I believe they wouldn't have an issue with that. I can verify that with them, and if there's any problem, I can let you know, but I think we could go with that date.
Councilman Carlson, is the 25th of August a good date for you, for them to come back?
That would be great, but the point is to come back with a specific proposal, or more than one specific proposal, on how we can.
To be clear, and I apologize, do you want me to arrange for them to meet with you individually, or do you want us to come back August 25th?
It would be better if they talk to each of us individually and talk to us about the options, and then based on that you can come. You can't tell us, you can't carry messages between us, but when you come back before us, you can say, you know, based on the discussions and the available options, talking to the consultants, here here's one option or three options or whatever. And we're gonna have to fund it, because the current situation is not acceptable.
Can you make that motion, Councilman Carlson?
Yes, I'd like to move that, city staff come back on, what was the date, August?
August 25th?
August 25th.
Under staff reports.
Under staff reports, to present options for director's insurance that will protect city council and the mayor, having, based on prior conversations with city council and the mayor.
Ms. Austin, are you comfortable with that date?
Yeah, I'll reach out to Gallagher, because it's going to be coordinating the individual meetings in advance of that.
Thank you.
And if there's any problem, I'll let you know.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye. Let me say that I may not vote for this because I'm also may exclude myself. If I do something wrong and if I follow the instructions that are in the city charter, then the city attorney's gotta represent whoever that council member is, unless I tell the city attorney, I don't want to do that, then I got to get my own counsel. That's just me talking to myself. So that's all.
Are you voting no today?
I'm going to vote no today.
I will vote no also.
But
Okay, motion passes.
That's all.
I want to comment on that. I have a comment. I mean,
No comment.
I'm not going to comment with you. I'm just saying, you know, this is a new world, new time, and the playbook has changed. And the tactics that some of these people are using is egregious. Coming after elected officials, not just here, other places, with frivolous lawsuits. You know, you don't vote on something, you know, someone comes after you and sue you. I mean, the times have changed now. So, I mean, everyone each can have his own. They don't want to get insurance or whatever, but I'm just telling you, attorneys aren't cheap. It's over $500 an hour, so they ain't cheap. So anybody can do what they want, but I'm just telling you, you never know when your day could come, and if you ain't got no money to be paying these folks, you got a problem.
Thank you very much, Councilman Goods.
Can I please follow up?
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, and the point is that you don't know whether someone did something or not. Anyone can make a false accusation. I worked on lots of litigation representing clients, and whoever has the most money can file false claims against someone and embarrass them, slander them, and then it's up to the other side to work to defend themselves. And it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. If whoever has enough money wins, and unless you know, luckily I have the resource to defend myself against false accusations, but if somebody else doesn't, they're going to be in big trouble. And you know, in at least several cases, you know, the mayor, the legal department, and the communication department were complicit in openly attacking and alleging false accusations, and especially against Councilmember Goods. And that's a separate issue for another day.
Carlson,
but
that is allegations.
It's not. It's fact.
That is allegations. Please, can we move forward?
Do you want me to show the evidence of that, or I'm happy?
You've been asked to present.
The mayor had I'm telling you right now, just because Marley asked you to question me in city council members doesn't mean you have the right to try to do that. The mayor had a press conference to allege that Councilmember Goods did something that he didn't do.
Please move forward.
It's not appropriate. It's probably illegal. It's unethical at the very least. We cannot allow the city resources and staff to be used to attack city council members.
We go to recess right now.
Are you representing the city, or are you representing the mayor? That's what I don't understand.
I'm representing the city.
Okay, well, stop trying to carry water for the mayor then.
We are at recess. Thank you. Councilman Carlson, can I talk to you, please?
You switch your engine now, ain't got time for a trifling woman on my main line. I'm moving on. You done your daddy wrong. Well, I warned you twice, you got to pay the price. I'm moving on. Yeah, someday, baby, when you have your plate, you're gonna look for your daddy will say, keep moving on. You stayed away too long. I'm through with you, too bad you're blue. I'm moving on. Move it, baby. I'm gonna move. Yeah, move it. Yeah. I said the train kept rolling all night long. The train kept rolling all night long. Engine number 9, get me away from here right on time. Move it. Move. Oh yeah. Keep on moving. I know, baby, your daddy ain't coming back. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Keep on moving. Roll it. Wow. I'm moving on, baby. Why? Well, I'm feeling kind of good now, 'cause I'm in my wine. Sometimes I'm laughing, and then again I'm crying.
All right.
I don't mean you know how.
Item number 16, I apologize. Yes, that was right. Councilman Carlson's motion, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Was that correct? We took a voice vote on it, but clerk is asking you for a roll call vote. So, roll call, yes. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Hurtak,
Yes?
Carson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Miranda,
No.
Citro.
No.
Motion carried with Vieira being absent at vote and Councilmember Miranda and Citro voting no.
Thank you. Agenda item number 16, E, 2022, 8, Chapter 18. I guess because there was nothing that wasn't going to be put off, Councilman Carlson asked for a conversation between city council members.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Carlson.
I don't think we have time to talk about this today, and we're running close to the deadline. Is it possible we could just say that we take an hour or two in one of the meetings before the end of August?
Would you like to pick a date?
The only choice is next week. I would just add, if we do August 4th, I would just ask staff not to add lots of items on, additional items on this day. We need at least an hour to discuss it. What I would propose is that we just go through a list of what we want, we vote on up or down on each concept, and then we make a motion to ask legal staff to draft the language, and then we.
Mr. Massey, would there have to be public comment in this discussion?
It's done by, Ms. Zellman's coming up to address you on that right now.
Yeah, good afternoon, Andrea Zellman, Deputy City Attorney. I just wanted to talk a little bit about timing. We did consult with the Supervisor of Elections Office, as did Attorney Shelby, and to get something on the November election ballot, the language has to be to the Supervisors of Elections Office in both English and Spanish by no later than August 23rd. So to try to get something done, if you talk about it next week, there isn't enough time to have 2 hearings to adopt by ordinance, because you have to adopt by ordinance language to go on a referendum. And you've already asked us to do it on that accelerated schedule now for the rent stabilization ordinance, to have first reading of an ordinance a week from today. So to try to do charter amendments as well, I would caution you. I think that's too accelerated a schedule. I went back and looked when we all served on the Charter Review Commission. Our recommendations were given to that city council in May 24th of 2018, and then they ultimately had first reading of the ordinance on August 8th, and then second reading and adoption on August 23rd, and that was to put it on the March 2019 ballot. Now, again, we could do the same thing this go-round, discuss charter amendments for the March 2023 ballot. The deadline for that is sometime in January. So I think that's more, I just don't believe it's realistic to try to get, and particularly something as significant as amending the Constitution of the City of Tampa, to try to rush it in less than 3 weeks' time, basically, to get it on the ballot.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I would just say, we brought this up at the beginning of the year, and legal delayed us, then our attorney was out sick, and we are where we are. We had a consultant who had COVID. I would suggest that we add it to the same public hearing dates that we have the other one coming up. And if not, we're gonna have it during the election, and that's fine.
Well, to do that, again, you asked us to come back with an ordinance for the rent control a week from today. If you wanted the same schedule for charter amendments, you would have to give us the ordinance language today, so we could get it to you by next week. And again, that's an incredibly accelerated schedule. We don't, as you know, we don't normally throw together significant ordinances in less than a week's time. It just seems, again, you have the prerogative, but it seems very, very hasty and rushed to me to try to do it on that schedule. Again, when you have the option of putting it on the March ballot, should you wish to.
I have one, Mr. Chair, I have one that I think is critically important to move forward at an it's accelerated now, but it wasn't accelerated as of several months ago. If we have to put everything else on March, that's fine, but I have one at least that I would propose. I don't have language, but I have the concept. Where did Andrea go? Oh, she's sitting there. Okay. Do you want me to throw it out, or?
It's your prerogative.
We've seen inherent conflict of interest in the legal department, although there are very good people in the legal department. When having to choose between the 3 clients the legal department has, the legal department often runs into conflict. I understand even at the CRB meeting a couple nights ago that there was language that was put forward that I don't think the city council would have approved, and I don't know which client the legal department was representing. And so I've talked to many lawyers in and around the Florida bar about this, and we need to, this area is kind of fuzzy around cities, but I think what we need to do, Miami as an example, and it's not a perfect example, but Miami has an attorney that represents the mayor. And I think I would like to make a motion to ask staff to come back with a draft ordinance on the same dates, what is it, August 4th and August 18th, to put on the ballot a proposed charter amendment that would create an attorney for the mayor, an attorney that would represent the mayor in the position of mayor, not individually, and then specify that the city attorney's office represents the city as a whole, not the mayor or city council, and then give the city council attorney the right to hire staff and outside consultants subject to a budget that's approved by council and the mayor.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, please.
I believe they're talking about the evening meeting. I think we have the evening meeting on the 18th.
Yeah, at the same schedule as the other one we just proposed today.
My question is, who then hires or selects or appoints the city attorney, not the mayor's attorney or the city council, but where does the city attorney come from? Who makes that hiring decision? HR? Or?
Yes, right now there's a process for hiring the city attorney. In addition to that, I think that we ought to also give city council on unanimous vote or 2/3 vote the right to fire the city attorney also. City attorney has to be neutral, and city attorneys in the past have been used as weapons against city council, and to some degree here, we need to make sure the city attorney, they're great people. I mean, Morris and Andrea are examples, and to protect them and to protect them from our complaints, we need to clarify who their client is. And if their client is the city, then we know clearly who it is. They're not representing us. They're representing the city. That's all. We're providing fair. The mayor will have her attorney that'll be separate from the city attorney, and then the city council will have their own attorneys.
Councilman Goods.
I talked to a couple of former city attorneys who worked here. And these are guys who were long time ago with mayors. And one gentleman told me, he says, yep, I was told to do an assignment and I gave the answer that's the correct answer. But my boss says, I don't pay you to do that answer. I want that answer. And being a city employee before and now council again, Ms. Hertek, if I'm your boss, you do what I tell you to do. And I hate to say that. And I'm not, we have great people here, but to me, they have a boss. They have a boss. When Marty's here, we're his boss. So I think Mr. Carlson is right. I think it's time this thing has become very political now. I mean, the city's growing and politics is, and I believe the mayor should have her own attorney. Council have their own attorney.
I don't mean to interrupt the discussion, but I just got a text from the city clerk's office, and this affects both the rental control ordinance that was proposed earlier today and this discussion. They do not have time to do the notice between the August 4th and the August 18th meeting to comply with Florida law. So I just want to let you know that probably means that neither one of these things will be able to, we have to adopt, in order to get these things on the ballot, they must be legally adopted by ordinance. And there are publication deadlines required by state law, statutory timeframes that we have to comply with. We can't vary them.
But we can set up a separate, Ms. Hertek suggests setting up a special meeting, right? We could set it up for the 19th or the 23rd or whatever.
Next week?
Well, we may need to discuss with the city clerk's office what they can meet notice-wise, I think, in order to come up with those dates.
Can we find out just what those deadlines are?
From the clerk's office? Yeah, we can ask.
Good afternoon, council. This is Sulaine Lucas with Deputy City Clerk's office. Usually for a notice to be provided, it has to be a 10-day notice, which puts us at, if you choose August 4th, that would not give us enough time to get the publication to the newspaper companies. So the deadline to get them to the newspaper companies is like the Wednesday, August 10th, and that's going to be shortening the time length. So it all depends on if you choose to adopt the ordinance on first reading. At that time, we could determine the next available date to meet the qualifications for the publication.
So we would have to set up 2 special meetings is what you're saying, right?
No, if you choose to have the first reading on August 4th, that is fine. But on August 4th, that's when we need to decide when the second reading can be held. So if you decide to have a special meeting for the second reading, it just need to be in enough time frame for me to be able to provide publication.
I think she's saying the second date may have to be different than the 18th.
What would your recommended date be?
Oh, it all depends on council's availability. So we have August 4th. We could even make the August 25th meeting But I know you had a deadline as well.
The 23rd is the absolute deadline for the supervisor of election, so it cannot
Right.
happen after then.
Why can't we do it the 18th at night?
I
If
think
we can do
she's
the
saying
4th.
she can't advertise that one 10 days in advance, correct?
Correct.
No, on the 18th. You can't advertise that, because if we do it on the 4th, you have 14 days, right?
Well, you have to understand the newspaper only runs on certain days. So for instance, if I publish with La Gaceta, they only publish on Fridays.
Okay.
So that would leave the 12th. That's not going to meet the deadline.
Okay, so should we, what did you say the deadline is for the supervisor?
August 23rd to the supervisor of elections.
So can we meet next week earlier than the 4th? Ooh, that wouldn't work.
We don't have enough
It
time.
still wouldn't work.
The challenge is the second.
If you
second
were to
hearing.
do that, it would definitely have to be either August 1st or the 2nd to hear those on first reading.
We
And that would,
can't have.
There's no way
ordinances
we'll
ready
have
that
either one of those
quickly.
done in that time frame. I will tell you that. The 4th is stretching it even on the rent
What
control.
what about the 19th or the 22nd for the second meeting?
let's see,
Because this is for the rent control one too. That one is.
22nd would be your best bet.
Okay, so I would just amend my motion and make it the 4th and the 22nd, and then we can do a separate motion on the other one.
Well, you would need to make a motion just to schedule a special call meeting on August 22nd first, and then schedule those items on that date.
Should we finish the motion that's on the floor, and then come back to that scheduling motion?
May I comment on Mr. Carlson's motion?
Please.
First of all, I just want to say for the record, our office, we always consider our client to be the city of Tampa. And that includes the city council, the mayor, all the departments. We don't consider you separate and apart and against each other, if you will. We view you all, and all of us, as part of the city of Tampa and representing the city of Tampa as an entity. You're one part of it, the mayor's one part of it, the departments are one part of it, and we represent all of you. And that, we take that very seriously. So I just want to make that comment, because I know you keep saying we have different clients, but our client is the city of Tampa as an entity. That aside, Councilman Carlson, your suggestions are intriguing, creating a new, separate attorney for the mayor, rewriting the role of the city attorney's office, rewriting the personnel in the city council attorney's office. But each of those, separate and apart, is pretty complicated. These are not simple things that I can just throw together in an ordinance. We really need to look more carefully at that, because you're really changing aspects of our current form of government. And I'm just not even, I'd like to explore further whether that could even work, what you're proposing. I'm not arguing that they're bad ideas or good ideas, but I do think they deserve more study. And I can tell you, we've been doing some research, when the city of Tampa amended the charter back in 2014 to create the position of city council attorney, we were, to my understanding, the first local government in the state to do something like that. It became a topic of discussion at local government annual seminars. We recently had one of our interns research, and there's no other city in the state that we could find with the strong mayor form of government like we have that has a separate city council attorney. It's an attorney from the city attorney's office who sits with the council. One city followed our lead in 2014, I believe it was Pensacola, and gave themselves the right in their charter to have a separate city council attorney, but never implemented it. They still have someone from the city attorney's office sitting with the city council. My point being that even what we did in 2014 still raises questions about the role of the city council attorney versus the role of the city attorney. Adding a new element to that, having a separate mayor's attorney, I just think warrants more study. And to just put that into an ordinance, again, in less than a week's time, and put it out to the voters before we've really evaluated it, gives me great concern.
We just approved union contracts today that we got the information on yesterday. So, and we
My
have
point
Gray
is, these
Robinson,
are
for
complicated
example.
legal issues, and they're not.
Gray Robinson has
that's
two
apples
former
and
city
oranges.
attorneys who can look at this, and we pay them.
And I suspect that if I were to discuss this with them, they'd probably agree with me that what we're talking about is not simple. It really is changing the form of government as it is currently described in our charter. Again, maybe they're great ideas. I'm not saying they're good or bad. I just think they warrant more thought.
Without
rushing,
bringing,
I understand the rent control, the sense of urgency. I don't understand the sense of urgency to completely change our form of government without putting more thought into it. That's all I'm saying.
without going into the substance of it, we have at least 3 city council members who I believe feel that the city attorney's office worked against them. And, this could result in lawsuits, it could result in bar complaints, and we need to, we desperately need to fix this, because otherwise we're going to end up into catastrophic fights in this city. And we need the voters to clarify this, or the city attorney is going to have to come before us and take an oath that no opinions are going to be made without city council approval, in addition to the mayor.
And I would say, are we sure that what you're proposing is going to fix the problem that you've identified or asserted, which, again, not necessarily agreeing with you, but I'm not sure having 3 separate attorneys. Again, I think it warrants study. I think it warrants consideration. I'm concerned about rushing it onto a ballot. I don't understand why we would do that without putting more thought and consideration into it. I mean, again, trying to meet these deadlines is extraordinarily difficult under any set of circumstances. And again, I appreciate the sense of urgency that was driving the push to do it for the rent control ordinance. I'm not understanding the sense of urgency to do that right now, on top of the rent control ordinance as well. So.
We still have a motion on the floor. Councilman Carlson, are you proceeding with your motion?
Yes, please, with the change that we would make the second date the 22nd.
Councilman Warner, are you still seconding that motion?
Yes.
Let me speak. I think we're going to discuss.
I want to go into discussion. Is that all right with you, or you want to speak now, Councilman?
I don't care. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Any discussion? Councilman Miranda?
Thank you very much. As you sit here and listen, ideas are good, and ideas sometimes don't fit the box. But every one and then you have an invention or something new, and you equate yourself to that. So what I'm trying to get at is this. If you have a separation of attorneys, one on the other side and one on this side, and they have a difference of opinion, what you're going to have is more than what you want. You're going to have one part of the government suing the other, which is possible. One part of government suing the other part of government, and whoever that government is, it's not going to be the same forever. So we've been under this for many, many years. I don't know how long, but I tell you what, I came on in 1974, on and off. And in 1974, we had one city council, one city attorney named Henry Williams. And maybe he had a couple of 3 or 4 side attorneys. It was different then. It wasn't as legalized as it is now. So the more you get, the least probable you have that it's going to be correct. because you have another idea. What about if that individual on the other side or this side don't like each other? What about if legally they have a different of opinion? Where are you going to go then? To court to fight each other? You're going to pay two attorneys that you have to fight each other in court, see who's right. I guess. That's the only way you're going to solve the problem. What I see here, and one day I'll speak to it, what I think, and I'm not going to do it today. Something that I've known for a long time, but I'm not going to bring it out today. You have a situation here, this is aside from what I was going to speak about. You cannot have a divided government and go forward united. It's like having three legs. That's why we only have two. So you know where you're going. Because a third leg, you make stumble on it. So if you want to stumble, keep dividing the government, and you're going to find what you have. If you think Washington is not doing the job, God bless you. Tampa's going to be worse than Washington. Keep hiring attorneys and keep fighting each other and see what's going to happen at the end of the day. That's all I'm going to say.
Anyone else? Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, we need to make sure that we have legal advice, some of the liability thing, that the legal advice is following the intent of council. You know, we have multiple situations where I can go through all the specifics if you want. We have multiple situations where the city attorney worked against 3 city council members, leaking information to the public, making false statements, making statements out of school. I can tell you all of them if you want. Also spending $100,000 plus I don't know what with another attorney to investigate a city council member without telling them. Giving a $200,000 settlement without getting city council approval. You know, the mayor holds press conferences, the communication department holds press conferences and sends defamatory information about city council. The simple solution is that it's not me or city council that's causing this divisiveness, it's somebody in the mayor's office. And the simple way to solve it, the simple way to bring this city back together is when the mayor comes here next week, she should apologize to city council and commit to us, and more importantly, the public, that city resources and city money will no longer be used to attack city council. If she does that, I will declare right then my loyalty and I'll follow behind. But just strong government only means that the mayor does not sit on city council. It doesn't mean a dictatorship. We're not going, the reason why I got on city council is to prevent a nasty dictator like the last one from taking hold. And what we see is brutality in the way this administration has attacked city council. The way they attacked Orlando Goods is really despicable. And the way they've attacked me, the way they've attacked others. We cannot allow that. That is what's causing the divisiveness in this city. And we've got to stop this. The mayor is the one who can stop. The mayor can tell the city attorney and her communication department to stop.
Can we please move on? Can we please move on?
Let's take this vote and go on.
Yeah, well, we just now had a member walk out.
Well, that's all right. He'll be back.
Okay. Councilwoman Hurtak.
We've been waiting to have this discussion as a workshop for, well, July, probably before that. I agree this particular issue is serious, but additionally, I want to schedule a day where this is all we talk about. Obviously, I support this motion. I seconded it, but I want more than just this. This is important, but this is a really long discussion that we all need to have with one another. And I agree, it would be great for everyone to come together. And as long as there's the illusion or the feel by some people that there isn't a coming together, then it isn't going to work. So whatever it takes to get us to all feel like we're on the same page, I'm absolutely happy to do. And if that means having separate council, that's great. If whatever it takes so that everyone feels like their voices are heard and that we all feel protected.
Mr. Chair, I will withdraw my motion and suggest that we schedule a discussion about charter amendments for the workshop on September 22nd, and that we not add anything else to that agenda on September 22nd.
Madam Clerk, would you note that Councilman Carlson's motion is also stating that we add nothing else to that agenda that day?
September 22nd.
Just for the workshop,
That's what I said, September 22nd.
not for the night meeting, just.
Just for the workshop. That is noted? We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Miranda, Maniscalco.
Got the hair.
You know, sometimes you're better off without hair. I didn't say you, I said sometimes.
Roll call vote, please.
Carlson?
To discuss the charter amendments at a workshop on September 22nd.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira? Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote.
Could I make a follow-up motion just to put the specific discussion of that I described before of the mayor, attorney, city council attorney being representing the city only, and then the city attorney being able to add staff, that be a specific part of the discussion, maybe as a separate item but connected.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Just that we discuss that possibility of the attorney framework that I mentioned before, the mayor having city attorney only representing the city, not the mayor or city council, and city council attorney having the right to either hire staff or outside consultants as a specific point of discussion on that day. We already passed that. We'll talk about all the other agenda items, but that I think by putting that specifically on there, it'll give the legal department a chance to look at it. We're not asking them to report necessarily, but just to have another discussion about that, because it will come up in the discussion anyway, but just to put on the agenda that we will be discussing that in particular.
That's fine with me.
Mm-hmm. Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. Roll call vote.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira? Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Councilman Vieira being absent at vote.
Chair.
1 second,
Is this-
please. 1
is
second,
Deputy
please.
Clerk?
1 second, please. Councilman Maniscalco.
This is a little off topic and it's not a motion, but I'd really like to call for a ceasefire. I think we should just stop all this. I'm talking everybody. Let's just start fresh and clean. We've wasted so much time arguing and fighting today. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying this is not worth it. It's not worth it. This is Tampa City Council. We're junior varsity level of politics. I understand there are important issues, but fighting and being at odds with one another, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not conspiring. But we can't continue like this. We can't. People attacking people and suing other people. Let's just start fresh. That's just me. It's worked for me. I can tell you that getting along is possible, that you can make peace with enemies, and I think we should try. I'm talking about everybody. Mayor, here, there, whatever. I'm not saying anybody's doing anything, but we should just start fresh. We've all been through a lot, through COVID, very busy year, very busy agenda. We have a very busy budget coming up. It's just not worth it. Let's just do our job, serve the people, and keep moving forward.
If you have this in a motion, I second it because that's the most logical thing I've heard in the last 6 months.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I wanted to go back to the charter review workshop, and I just want to remind all of my brethren who served on the Charter Review Commission with me that we did get 18 amendments passed during the municipal election. So I believe that anything that we that we still have a real ability to get these passed in March if we come up with amendments that citizens want and we publicize them well.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Carlson.
We did not resolve and this is probably what the clerk's going to say, we didn't resolve the issue of scheduling August 20th for your item, Mr. Boots.
Yeah, I believe the clerk would like for you all to schedule a special call meeting for August 22nd, I believe was the date, for the second reading on the proposed rent control ordinance or stabilization ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, special meeting on August 20th? 22nd? 22nd?
Is there a specific time, City Clerk, that the chambers are available? Is it available at 9 a.m. on the 22nd?
I am checking now. Give me 1 second. It is available at 9 a.m. There is a meeting at 2:30 p.m., so it would be best to have it at 9 a.m. as possible.
Okay.
Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Thank you. Wow, feels like we've been here all day.
Chair.
We have.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do have to bring up a housekeeping matter. Carson had made a motion to schedule the charter review items on September 22nd and not to have anything else on that date. We do have 3 items on that is already scheduled for the 22nd of September.
It was, if I stand corrected, Councilman Carlson, that nothing else be added to that day. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Feels like we've been here all day. Agenda item 17, file number E2022-8, chapter 27. Ms. Wells.
Mr. Chairman, Kate Wells for the record. If council doesn't mind, there's an item 81. It's a public hearing that was scheduled for 10:30 this morning. There has been a joint request for continuance to next week on August 4th. If you wouldn't mind taking that one item out of order.
Yes, thank you very much.
Have we opened the hearing for those items?
Yes, Councilman Maniscalco, we did take a vote on that. That's agenda item number 81, correct file number HPC 22-01-C. And the applicant is asking for a continuance until August 4th.
And the legal department agrees with it as well. It's a
Is
joint
there
request.
anyone in the chambers that wish to speak to that continuance only? Do we have anyone online to speak to that continuance only? Sir, are you the representative?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Scott McLaren, Bank of America Tower, here on behalf of KT North Ashley, who is the owner of the property. We are requesting a continuance, and we concur with Ms. Wells and asking for a 1-week continuance. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
Continue to August 4th at 10:30 a.m.
Second. That was HPC 22-01-C.
Yes.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Then shall we continue with the continuances? Sorry, Mr. Scott. 81?
I think we just dealt with number 81, so I think you.
I mean 82. I apologize. 82? They're asking for a continuance to the 25th of August.
I think we already approved that.
No, we still had to make, because we didn't open it.
Oh.
Ms. Wells? I'm sorry, forgive me, sir. Ms. Wells, since we're on this, 82 is asking for continuance until August 25th?
I believe the applicant's representative has requested that. It's a vacating petition, and so I think all the council would need to do is move that to.
Let's make a motion on that, please.
So moved.
Have a motion to continue file number VAC 22-12 to August 25th, made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you. Also, let's take care of number 83.
Move to remove from the agenda.
Second.
That's file number DE1 2241C. Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Cotton, thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination.
There are a couple of first readings of text amendments that council heard at their April 28th workshop. The first is to item 17, which is an amendment to regarding commercial vehicles. It's a change to chapter 43, the definition of commercial vehicles, and 27-283.11, which is the commercial vehicle section in the code. There's one, at that hearing, a gentleman from Bowman Heights spoke. He had concerns about the language. So between first and second reading, we were going to come back and make a change. And it's basically to the definition of personal vehicle that's in addition to the code. And it's the part that says, and may include but not be limited to automobiles, private pickup trucks, and vans. That's being proposed to be struck. That was an issue. He had concerns about how that language would be interpreted. At the workshop, council was okay with that change, but it didn't make it into the draft ordinance. So between first and second reading, we'd be striking that language. Other than that, it's just a change to the definition of commercial vehicles and allowing people who drive larger pickup trucks or whatever to be actually park them at the house they live in without being cited by code enforcement for having a commercial vehicle on their property.
Any comments or any questions for Mr. Cotton?
I don't have a comment. I just want some clarity on the, where it says commercial equipment vehicles, what they are. It says machinery, commercial containers, materials for furnishing, including but not limited to trailers or box trucks. And then it goes further, recreational vehicles, commercial vehicles, utility trailers, private vehicle for operation in the street may include but not limited to automobiles, pickup trucks, or vans. When you say automobiles, pickup trucks, and vans, do we have a size? It's very broad.
That's the part that's being asked about. We're going to strike from the definition. That was a request from Bowman Heights when at our workshop.
I see, and then you have the vehicles and the under 283.11, what they are, but 9 by 22, is that a ton and a half, 2 tons? What is that? I mean, you can have a car 9 by 22 now.
What was the size? That's the size. The 9 by 22, I believe, was the size of like an F-250. Mm-hmm. The dual cab and everything. That's where we picked up that number from. But yes, if it's specifically a pickup truck being used for a commercial purpose, that would be caught. If it's like a Ford Excursion and it's just somebody driving for home, that would be.
And I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate, but now you have to say 2 trucks alike. One's got a sign on it, and they're both used for the same thing. How do we differentiate who's right and who's wrong?
Well, that's what this code is addressing. That's where this code is coming into place. The people that have it on the side would be able to park it at their house. They wouldn't be able to park it in the street. They wouldn't be able to. It would be able to be parked on their property overnight, because right now that's not allowed by our code.
But we also have to realize that, and again, sometimes you want to park them on their property, but the property has nothing to park it. In other words, they don't even have a driveway, so they're going to go on the grass. I'm just letting you know what I see.
No, I understand.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment to this? Seeing none?
Yeah, you need to do first reading of the ordinance if you want to move forward with it.
Fine, thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
Yes, sir. I'd like to move file number B2022-8 CH27, number 17, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida relating to commercial vehicles in residential districts, making revisions to City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27 Zoning Code, amending Section 27-43 definitions, amending Section 27-283.11 vehicle parking, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. File number E2022-8, Chapter 27.
This is.
I apologize.
Second reading and adoption to be held on August 25th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. Mr. Cotton.
Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. This is amendment to Section 27-318, which is the alcoholic beverage section for enforcement. This is amending the ability to speed up the process if council determines that there is a danger to people's health or to the building that the event's taking place in, for a consideration of a suspension or a revocation, instead of having a 30-day notice, to limit it, to narrow it down to 15 days.
Any questions for Mr. Cotton? I have one. Is this just structural, or could this be other concerns as far as people's health, safety, and welfare?
Well, it's danger to people's health is how the code is going to read. That would include if there's illegal activity taking place on the site.
Thank you.
That would all be wrapped
Thank
into
you.
the same logic.
All right, I have an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. This is file number E 2022-8, Chapter 27, Ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida relating to alcoholic beverage sales notice timeframe, making revisions to the City of Tampa ordinances, Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27, Zoning Code, amending Section 27-318, expiration, suspension, and revocation of approvals for alcoholic beverage sales, posting of notice for discontinuance of sales, evidence of resumption of sales, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goos. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Cotton.
Motion carried with Councilmember Hurtak and Councilmember Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on August 25th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Cotton.
Eric Cotton, Development Coordination, item number 19. This is an amendment to section 27140, which is the bonus criteria. The state of Florida passed a amendment to the statutes that would include gray water as a basis for getting the bonus. So if a development comes in utilizing gray water, which is waste from baths and showers, not from toilets and such, they can get a bonus. That would be added to our bonus criteria that someone could tap into, no pun intended, to utilize an increase in their density or their floor area.
Councilwoman Hurtak, do you feel comfortable reading number 19?
Yes, because Yes,
Thank
I
you.
was briefed on this and I talked about it, so. File number E 2022-8, Chapter 27, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance in the City of Tampa, Florida relating to adding gray water as a bonus provision, making revisions to City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27, zoning and land development, amending Section 27-140, bonus provisions, repealing all ordinances or part of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
A motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Goos. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
Second reading and adoption will be held on August 25th, 2022. Motion carried with Councilmember Vieira being absent at vote.
Thank you. Item agenda number 20, file number E 2022-8, Chapter 27. Mr. Cotton.
Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. This is an amendment to the definition and duties of the city's development review and compliance staff. There was an amendment to the Florida Building Code by the Florida Legislature that was preempting local governments from regulating design criteria for the city of Tampa, for instance, Seminole Heights, and parts of West Tampa that are not in the CRA, parts of East Tampa that might not be in the CRA. We would not be able to regulate the design criteria that was adopted by council at the urge of the community. There was an exemption for communities that have a design review board. So we're amending the definition of our DRC to include them to be a design review board.
Any comments or questions?
We did it illegal.
Councilman Goos.
File number E 2022-827, ordinance presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida relating to the development, review, and compliance staff, DRC, making revision of City of Tampa Code of Ordinance, Chapter 27, zoning and land development, amending Section 27-43, definitions, amending Section 27-66, intent and purpose, amending Section 27-67, duties, providing for repeal of all ordinance or parts of ordinance in conflict whereof, providing severability, providing effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Goos, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposed?
Motion carried unanimously with Councilmember Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on August 25th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
Agenda item 21, file number E2022-8, chapter 27.
Good afternoon, Council. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. This is an amendment to Chapter 27-43 and 27-127. 23 is the definitions. We're amending the definition to, that section to include the definition of a street cafe. This is an outgrowth of the city's Lift Up Local program, which is going to be, which I don't know if it's expired or will be expiring. This will allow people to utilize parking spaces in the actual street. They can then utilize those parking places for an extension of, if they have a sidewalk cafe permit for a restaurant or a retail establishment, they can then utilize the actual part of the street. That actual code section for that enforces that and regulates that is actually in chapter 22, which is the transportation section of the code.
Any comments or questions? Thank you. Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 21, file number 2022-8, chapter 27. Ordinance being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance in the city of Tampa, Florida, relating to street cafes, making revision to the city of Tampa Code of Ordinances, chapter 27, zoning and land development, amending section 2743 definitions, amending section 27127, also classes of special use permits, agents or body responsible for each general procedures, providing for repeal of all ordinance or parts of ordinance in conflict with it, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Second.
A motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
Motion carried unanimously with Councilmember Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption to be held on August 25th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. Agenda item number 22, file number E2022-8, chapter 27.
Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. This is to codify parking standards for storefront residential development. As it stands in the code right now, when somebody comes in and does a storefront residential development, they have to provide parking for both the retail use at the retail calculation and the residential at the residential calculation. This would allow somebody to, they still have to meet the non-residential parking standards. So if it's a retail use, the 4 per 1,000, but for if they had like 2 apartments above a small business, they would only have to provide 1 space per unit versus 1.5 spaces per unit.
Very good. Very good. Any comments or questions? Thank you. Councilman Carlson.
Sure, I'd like to move file number E2022-8, CH27, ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, relating to off-street parking spaces, making revisions to City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27, zoning and land development, amending Section 27-283.7, number of off-street parking spaces, providing for repeal of all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
Motion carried unanimously with Councilman Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption to be held on August 25th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Cotton.
Council.
Councilman Miranda, can you please,
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm Public Safety Vice Chair, items 23 through 29.
Second.
motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you. Councilman Goods.
Mr. Chair, move items 30 through 40.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Councilwoman Hurtak, could you read 41 through 47 minus 43 and 44?
Yes, I move items 41 and 42 and 45 through 47.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Councilman Miranda, can you move
I think we've done that already.
51?
We didn't do that? Item 51, and maybe it's the only one that earlier we moved,
Yes,
four
we-
of them. 51 is the only one, I believe. I move item 51.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Carlson, can you read item 53 through 74 and mention the substitute for item 70?
Yes, 52, I'd like to move 52 through 74. substitute for 70.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you. I'd like to move item number 75.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to set the public hearing for items 76 through 80.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilwoman Hurtak. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I believe that
That's it.
clears us.
So,
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk? Yes?
Yes.
Move them all, yes. Did you want a roll call on that, just? Okay. Fantastic, thank you. Information reports, Councilman Carlson.
No, in the era of trying to bring peace back to the city, I'll apologize to my colleagues for getting emotional and upset. These issues are hot, and the community is giving us feedback, and we're also experiencing things personally. So my intention and effort is to try to get along with everybody, especially you all, but also staff. And I hope that the mayor's office feels the same way, and we can restart at some point with a collegial environment. Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
On me anyway, when I get up here and I walk out, whatever I say here, I forgot already about it. That's how I am.
Councilman Carlson, we all have passion, and I admire your passion. So thank you. Councilman Maniscalco.
thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to present a commendation on October 6th to Robin Bethune, who represents Light Up MBC, which honors those who have lost their lives to metastatic breast cancer. Robin lost her daughter Erica last year to metastatic breast cancer, and October is also Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
A motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Councilwoman Hurtak.
You know, it's been a day, and we're just going to continue that day. You know, we had something happen Tuesday night. We had a vote by the CRB to recommend that we put subpoena power on the ballot. And, you know, effective policy requires trust from the community. Without accountability, there can be no trust. The citizens of Tampa should have the right to decide how do they want to build that trust through accountability. So, with that being said, I make a motion that legal come back to us on August 4th with an ordinance to put the CRB, subpoena power, and independent counsel on the ballot for voters to decide, using the following codes and ordinances as a model for Miami, Miami-Dade, Broward, Key West, Orange County, and even our own city codes.
I'm going to vote to put it on the ballot. However, my personal feeling is that only judges, state attorneys, we call it, when they have it to a session to accuse somebody of something was happening in Washington, have subpoena powers. This council has subpoena powers, never been used. So that's all I'm going to say.
Councilwoman Hurtak, that was to have staff report back to us.
Ideally, the goal was to get it on the ballot in November, but it doesn't sound like we are really going to have that possibility.
There's always March, or city election.
I know, and so I'm fine with that. So I'm actually fine on moving the date from August 4th. I'll go.
Perhaps you're having a charter workshop on the 22nd of September. That might be a date for us to bring forward draft language and to have a discussion, because that would be part of what would go on the spring ballot.
Sure, I'll be fine with that. And again, I'm not saying anything about how we all feel about it, but we've heard enough about what we feel about it. And I feel that it really is just up to the voters at this point. If we're leaving so many things up to the voters, we might as well add another thing.
Councilman Carlson.
Thank you for bringing that up. As Councilmember Miranda said, we already have subpoena power, and we have the ability to delegate it if we want. this is not really doing anything different except making it specifically available to them. They could use one of our attorneys. All this is doing is making an attorney available to them without putting any words in anybody's mouths. You all should watch the video from the CRB meeting the other night and look at how the legal department represented some of this discussion and see whether you agree with it or not. But I think you mentioned this at the beginning, but I think it's important to mention that, surprising to me, the existing CRB that was mostly not appointed by us requested that we do this, at least the first part of it. So we're responding to them in meeting their request.
We have a motion made by Councilman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Carlson. Any discussion? I need to say this. I think I've been the council person that's been to CRBs the most. When the reorganization of the CRB was formed by us and by the mayor, we tried to get as many people on that CRB from city council as possible. We could not do that. It did not happen. So what I had suggested and what I requested is that the CRB come back to city council once a year so that they could be organic, they could grow, and they can make decisions on their own, telling us what they want, what they don't want, what they like, what they don't like, what they can use, what they can't use. This decision that was made by the CRB was not a decision made by the CRB. I apologize, it's not. It left the decision back up to us. When we have other boards, variance review, historic, other boards that the petitioner did not like what that board had to say, they come to us. We have 3 things that we can do: uphold, overturn, or send it back to that board for them to make a decision. I can't support this. I would prefer the CRB making their own decision on this. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
I'm confused.
I'm not.
I know what he's saying.
I'm not.
Mr. Chair, can I mention 2 quick things that
Go ahead.
somebody else can say, but the CRB voted the other night, I think it was 6-3 or something like that.
To send it back to us to make
ask
the
us
decision for them.
So the second thing, though, that I want to make clear to everyone on all sides of this issue is that, and I'm not a lawyer, but state law prohibits us and would prohibit them from subpoenas to police officers. And so we're not talking about punishing police officers or trying to subpoena police officers. It would be things like asking for cameras on a store that are available. Things
Mr.
like
Carlson, Councilman Carlson, I understand that. I get back to my point that I made here. I asked the board to come back to city council and them tell us what they want. The decision they made the other night wasn't them telling us what they want. The decision they made was, we'll leave it up to city council. So I'm just one vote. I'm just one vote. I'm just explaining my vote. Councilman Good.
I just want to make sure I got it clear, because my understanding was they voted, that's what they wanted, but they wanted to send it to council because that's what they wanted. Am I confused on that?
Go back and look at it.
I'll look at the tape.
Go back and look at it. We have a motion made by Councilwoman Hurtak, seconded by Councilman Carlson. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira? Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Citro?
Nope.
Motion carried unanimously with Councilman Vieira being absent at vote and Councilmember Citro voting no.
Does that clear you off, Councilwoman?
That's it.
Councilman Goods. Councilman Miranda.
I've got a couple of them here. I would like to make a motion for a special call fiscal year 2023 budget workshop on Tuesday, August 16th, 2022 at 9 a.m.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
Second one, sir, I've been advised that the National Tradesman Day is occurring on September 17, 2022. Therefore, I would like to make a motion to present accommodation to the Logistics and Assess Management, also known as LAM, Department Facilities Management Tradesman team of our own city council meeting on Thursday, September 15th.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
One more. I would like to make a motion for a congratulatory commendation to Laura and Stephen Kreiser on the establishment of the Laura and Stephen Kreiser Community Fund, an endowment created for the TOP Top Jewish Foundation in honor of the couple's decades of tireless service to humankind. This commendation will be presented along with recognition from Hillsborough County Commissioners on July 31st, 2022.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
And that's it. The other one is just that we do have a budget meeting of the Finance Committee on August the 4th at 9 a.m. We have two special calls, one on September 6th and one on September 20th. That's already been done.
Thank you very much. Before I go to you, sir, I forgot to wish my mother a very happy birthday on Saturday. It is not today, it is Saturday, but I want, she's turning 64, and I told her you can play the Beatles song.
Happy birthday.
64.
She is not 64.
64.
A very youthful 64.
It's okay. It's okay.
My mom turned a certain age and her brother put it on Facebook and she's still mad about it.
She looks great for 64.
She does.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
She does. Thank you very much. City of Tampa has a green building incentive program that was voted in on 2008 that would provide initiatives to encourage sustainable construction and redevelopment. I would like our staff to take a look at this program and see over 14 years how the program has been used in the past and how this program can utilize to meet the administration and the City of Tampa goals and our Resilience Tampa roadmap. The motion will schedule a workshop to discuss green building initiatives, ordinances that offer and incentives of permit fee reimbursements and fast-track permitting, including a staff report on how green building initiative programs, ordinance number 2008-112, is being implemented and how many developers are using it, and find ways to increase the use of this program and how it aligns with the Resilient Tampa roadmap on October 27th.
We have a motion from the chairman, a second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it. Motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Move. Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. We are adjourned.
Every raindrop I hear on my window pane, beats so loud and clear. Why just spelled your name? I got nowhere to turn to, tired of being alone. I feel like breaking up somebody's home. I know it's useless hanging on when you belong to someone else. Can't control the feeling, 'cause after all I didn't make myself, yeah. Last night I cried so hard, I believe I caught a chill. Can't control the vibration, my heart just won't